What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto brother of Vali? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. What do you want? A cool voice could be heard in a dark tunnel. Light footsteps nearing the end of the tunnel. A throne could be seen with a young man sitting on it. He has long dark blue hair, his eyes have black circles around him. He is light-skinned and has purple and dark markings on his body. He isn't wearing a chest, you could see his muscles, the only clothing he has is a pair of black pants and black shoes. The young looks to be fucking bored, like he could kill himself just for fun. When are we going to that forbidden place we call home? The voice sounded deep and a bit rough. A voice not fitting the young man. If he was a man. Tisk, in a few days still have a loose ends to tie up, said the cool voice. By that you mean to burn the fucking temple to the ground? The young man shakes his head. Your hate is growing to the point it could become a physical being. Single quote. Those fucking monks have something I need and I ain't leaving without it, even if it means I'll have to obliterate them to reach my goal, the cool voice said with a bit of bloodlust in his tone. My hate is nothing compared to the pain I'll cause on those who fucked up. You should know that, acknowledgia. Yes, I know that, Naruto. You better keep the end of your deal. The now acknowledgia say. Acnologia, the dragon said to rival Ophis and Big Red with power. No one had the power to control him. He's feared by God himself. Created by chaos, war, hate, pain, anger and any other negative power. Yay. Yay, we both benefit from the deal, so I won't fuck things up, Naruto said. Naruto has blonde the style like Sting Eucliffe. He has icy blue eyes that could freeze hell. He is wearing a long white shirt, on top of it is a black winter coat with white fur. With skinny gray pants and black Vans. Around his neck is a Jashin necklace, on his back is triple blade scythe. He has black earrings. In total he looked like a man who could steal your girl with a single look. You can leave, I can't stand your ugly face, Acknologia says. Before Naruto could remark he was pushed out of his minscape. Outside, Tisk fucking overgrown lizard, Naruto opens his. Looking down on the cliff he could see a temple with a statue of monk in the middle of the golden doors. Time to get my prize, said Naruto with a smirk on his face. I hope there won't be any sinners because it's Judgment Day. Jumping of the cliff with his eyes closed. Falling in a peaceful manner as he nears the ground, he grabs his scythe and two black dragon wings appear on his back as he descends to the ground. Below, a few monks look up and could see a person coming looking like the Grim Reaper. Let the hell be on earth. Before they even knew it, Naruto starts cutting them down like a bunch of papers with a crazy look on his. He grabs one of the monk's head and bashes it to the ground enough to kill him quickly. One tries to cut his arm but he spins around to avoid it while using his scythe to clean the other monks' heads around him. Your blood, it reeks. 5 bodies fall. I feel your pain, it speaks. 10 bodies fall. My body feels in heat. 20 bodies fall. So many of you enjoy the feast. 40 bodies fall. You are reaching your peak. 80 bodies fall. 1 left. Well, that was fucking boring. I guess the underworld will be more interesting. If not, I can just start war, said Naruto with his whole body covered in blood. Better clean up before she kills me. Phone rings. Naruto grabs his phone. Who is it? Ah, Naruto, it's been a while. Oh, it's you, what do you want? Azazel? Can't I call an old friend? Fine, I need a favor. What is it? This better be interesting, Acknologia responded as his wings shone dark purple as his partner spoke to him. Naruto smiled at that as he continued towards Japan. Albion was a good partner and he could not have asked for a better dragon residing in his sacred gear. Naruto, do you sense that? Yeah, Naruto replied, his eyebrows raised as his head stayed looking in Japan's general direction and a larger smirk formed on his face. Though the energy signature was weak, Naruto was certain it was Diedrich and the boosted gear. Looks like we finally found the red one, Acknologia? Tisk, nothing to pique my interest, Acknologia responded in a bored-filled tone. His host is weak, such a weak signature is nothing compared to mine. The only reason we found his energy source was due to erected dome, without it we could not have found him, such a weak energy signature we could have easily passed by without knowing it was him. I think you are getting over yourself, Naruto commented as he returned his attention to flying. Besides, he is not our rival. How could I not? Agnologia questioned with an amused tone. With you as my partner we could surpass all and I can finally destroy great and become the Black Dragon God. Releasing a sigh, Naruto kept flying but he could not help but smirk at Agnologia's words of pride, though it seemed like the Black Dragon was ignoring his other statement. Over the years, Agnologia and him had developed a relationship built solely on pride. Naruto had allowed Agnologia to control his body when it was needed and allowed him to control the flow of power he would receive from the dragon. Agnologia in return was always giving him power that was needed and worked with him as an equal. Dragons were prideful creatures that did not bow to anything lower than their existence. But Agnologia had acknowledged Naruto and thus they were equals in their partnership. It was shocking how much Agnologia enjoyed such a partnership. It seemed as if Naruto was a few of the humans that received his respect as well. Rias Gremory held the appearance of a beautiful young woman in her late teens with white skin, blue eyes and a buxom figure. Her most distinctive feature was her long beautiful crimson hair that reached down to her thighs, with a single strand of hair standing up, and also her hair had loose bangs covering her forehead and side bangs framing her face. Being a Gremory, she had not been exposed to many situations in which she felt actual fear. But here she was with her peerage helpless before one of the leaders of Grigori. Her peerage consisted of many members. There was Akano her queen, Yuto her knight, Kaneko her rook, and Issei her pawn. Akano was a beautiful young woman with a voluptuous figure around the same age as Rias with very long black hair and violet eyes. Her black hair was usually tied in a long ponytail, which reached down to her legs with two strands sticking out from the top and sloping backwards, with an orange ribbon keeping it in place. She had on a shrine maiden's outfit. Yuto held the appearance of handsome young man with short blonde hair, gray eyes, and a mole under his left eye. He was wearing the Kuo Academy uniform without the blazer. Kaneko held an appearance of a petite girl with white hair and hazel eyes. The front of her hair had two long bangs going past her shoulders and several loose bangs hanging over her forehead, while her back has a short bob cut. She too was wearing the female Kuo Academy uniform. Issei, the final and newest member of Rias's peerage, stood at average height with short brown hair and light brown eyes. He liked Kiba wore the school uniform but he had on the blazer. There were others fighting against Kokebiel as well. Zenobia Quarta, a young woman with chin-length blue hair with a green fringe on the right side and dark yellow eyes. She wore her church battle outfit, which consisted out black skin-tight short-sleeved unitard with pauldrons, matching her fingerless gloves and thigh-high leather boots. Dressed similarly was her partner Irina. Irina was a beautiful young woman with long chestnut hair and violet eyes. Her hair was tied back into twin tails. Their opponent was Kokebiel himself, a leader of Grigori. Kokebiel held the appearance of a young man with black hair. Unlike other fallen angels, he had pointy ears. Dressed in a black robe with accessories, it allowed his 5 pair of wings to be shown freely. Kokebiel was amused by those pitiful worms that were trying to oppose him. It was very amusing indeed. His plan was so close to success. All he had to do now was kill the pathetic worms standing before him now and he could have another war. In the previous war, they could have won if it was not Azazel's intervention, but now he could start another one in which the fallen angels would win against both angel and devil. From here on out, I will start a war. I will take your heads as a gift. Even if it's only me, I will continue from where we left off. I'm going to show Sirzex and Michael that we, the fallen angels, are the ultimate beings. Kokebiel shouted in glee as an insane fit of laughter escaped his lips. Everyone present just looked at him in horror. Their lives were going to end here, and a war was going to break out because of the insane fallen angel. War, finally we can have war once more. Raising his arms above his head, Kokebiel formed a massive spear of light that dwarfed his entire figure, and in comparison he was an ant. Looks of horror all formed on everyone's face as they could only stare at the massive spear pointing towards them. Death was what waited for them. It was hopeless now to fight against something so massive in size that it could easily vaporize them by touch. Before Kokebiel could even launch the spear, the dome that was erected around them keeping Kokebiel from destroying Japan was shattered and a figure shrouded in purple light descended onto the ground. It can't be. Diedrich shouted in shock. What is it, Diedrich? Issei asked as he looked at his sacred gear in confusion. Is it that guy over there? Be careful around him, Issei. That is the host of the Black Dragon, Diedrich answered. It seems that the Black One's host is stronger than what I imagined him to be. Who the hell are you? Kokebiel shouted his question at Naruto, who had stowed away his sacred gear, and the light that once surrounded him died down and he stood there in his regular attire. I am Naruto Namakis, Naruto responded as he looked at Kokebiel with a calculative look on his face. Namakis, isn't that the name of that bastard I had killed? Kokebiel asked in a mocking tone. A sneer was on his face as a laugh escaped his lips. That look on his face when he tried to save with the baby. Ha ha ha, too bad Azazel didn't declare war when that happened, but it wasn't a waste of time. I got to see those pathetic humans desperately try to save themselves. Ha ha ha, those feathers, Naruto murmured as his eyes widened in shock before they shifted into ones of rage. His pupils shrunk as his eyes took on a fierce look, similar to one of a dragon's. A pair of white dragon wings shot from his back and a death glare was sent at Kokebiel. Those hideous feathers were yours. Ha ha ha, you finally figured it out. Kokebiel gave another fit of maniacal laughter. Finally I can kill you and complete my list of Namakis. I'm gone, rip your wings, Naruto shouted in rage as his wings shone with power and he flew into the air. Kokebiel didn't have a chance to throw his spear as a fist connected with his jaw and sent him flying away. Destroy. Destroying power from his spear, Naruto felt his power rise to new levels as he directed his gaze at Kokebiel, who had recovered from his punch and was glaring at Naruto with hate-filled eyes. How dare you hit you? You filthy human! Kokebiel shouted in rage as he flew towards Naruto and a sword made of light appeared in his hands. Naruto didn't even bat an eyelash as he encased his arm in wind magic and grabbed hold of Kokebiel's blade. I am going to clip your filthy wings, you crow! Naruto yelled as he added more force to his grip on the light sword and shattered it into tiny particles of light before sending a punch at Kokebiel's stomach. Not relenting, Naruto formed a Rasengan in his other hand and slammed it on Kokebiel's back. The result of his actions sent Kokebiel plummeting down towards the ground. Before Kokebiel could reach the ground, Naruto rushed down towards him. But before he could reach him, Kokebiel recovered enough to send a barrage of light spears towards him. Weaving through the spears, Naruto was forced back as more and more shot towards him. Kokebiel proceeded to create a larger and more destructive spear as he shot it towards Naruto, who had finished dodging the spears and turned to face another one flying towards him. Raising his hand, Naruto split the beam in half as he drained the energy from the attack and filled up his barely used reserves. His previous uses of magic barely used any of his magical power, thus excess magic filled his system. Acknowledgia, expel the extra magic. You got it, Acknowledgia responded as the destroy dividing shone brighter and black magic particles were released from his wings and they fluttered in the air around Naruto. Oh ho, it seems like you found the one with those filthy wings, partner. Why don't we show them the power of supremacy? Let us them, Acknowledgia, Naruto said as he crossed his arms and he was consumed by a purple light. Vanishing Dragon Balance Breaker. Finish this crow and show him what true power is. Albion said with a bloodlust-filled tone as Naruto nodded his head in acknowledgement and began the change into his armor. Once the light died down, Naruto had black dragon armor formed around him with purple jewels decorating it. In this form, it boosted his speed, power, durability, and allowed him to use his power of destroy without the 10-second limit, though temporarily it was still a very useful ability that it granted him. Looking at Kokebiel through his helmet, Naruto channeled all the rage and frustration that he had felt towards his family's demise and charged forward. His goal was Kokebiel's head. Kokebiel was not the only one shocked by Naruto's new form, Issei and the others were as well. To see a completed balance breaker was shocking enough as it was the forbidden stage that all sacred gears possessed, but to seeing it used was not as shocking, but the power that was emitted during the transformation was what brought out their shock. Issei was most shocked out of them all. His destined rival was able to achieve something that he could not even muster at his condition now. What else was Naruto Uzumaki capable of? Prepare yourself, Kokebiel, Naruto responded as he rushed forward. But Kokebiel had already planned a way of attack as another barrage of light spears flew towards him. Vanishing from the position he was once situated, Naruto appeared before Kokebiel with a raised fist and slammed it against his face. Following up his former attack, Naruto punched Kokebiel once more with his other fist. Kokebiel retaliated with a punch of his own, but Naruto caught it before it could reach his face and began crushing his hand. Screaming in pain, Kokebile formed a light sword in his free hand and sent it towards Naruto, who caught it with his other hand. Adding pressure to both hands, Naruto heard the familiar sounds of bones being crushed as Kokebile's screams gotten louder and his blade shattered into tiny shards of light-based magic. Clenching his fist, Naruto punched Kokebile back once more. This time Kokebile was prepared for this as he drew a blade and went to stab him. Releasing his hold of Kokebile, Naruto leaned back and allowed the blade to come forward. Luckily enough, he was able to dodge fast enough for the blade to reach its limited range and stop a little ways before reaching him. But that did not stop Kokebile, as a kick was planted against his chest and Naruto was pushed backwards for a good distance before he recovered and charged at Kokebile. Like his previous attempts to charge him head first, he was met with another barrage of light spears. This time Naruto did not bother to dodge them as he took the attacks head on, but they did not even touch him as multiple magic circles appeared where the light spears were supposed to hit. Using the magic he was collecting from the light spears, Naruto compressed the collected magic into a wave of lightning that shot out from his body and moved towards Kokebile, who was busy preparing another massive spear of light. This time he succeeded in its creation and use as Kokebile threw it straight at Naruto, who raised his hand, destroy. The familiar sensation of his magic coursing through his entire body was felt once again as Naruto raised his hand and a basketball-sized sphere of purple magic formed in his palm, and soon wind began swirling around it and the sphere turned into a large Fuma shuriken with the sphere in the middle. This was his Rasen shuriken. A buzzing sound was emitting from his technique. Throwing the deadly technique forward, it flew straight for Kokebile. Kokebile merely leaned to the right, avoiding Naruto's Rasen shuriken, but he did not expect it to expand and a massive dome of wind blades consumed him entirely. The only two ways for Naruto to use his Rasen shuriken was through senjutsu and when he donned his scale mail. Having some sort of protection against the blades of wind that formed around the Rasengan allowed him to use that technique to its fullest. If he had used it without senjutsu or his scale mail, his hand would have been easily gone from his body as the wind blades were too close and could easily damage him. Such an attack was powerful. It damaged people caught in its radius was at a cellular level, easily damaging nerves and possibly the ones caught in its range's ability to use magic. Once Kokebile was seen again, his dome of wind blades had vanished, leaving behind a heavily damaged Kokebile. Though Kokebile could barely keep himself in the air, he was not willing to let the blonde win. He needed this war to prove his dominance. Panting heavily, Kokebile could not even retaliate when Naruto appeared behind him and grabbed hold of his wings. Looking at Naruto in shock and fear, Kokebile did not have time to do anything as both his wings were ripped from his back and his feathers scattered into the wind. Kokebile screamed in pain as he was dropped from the sky and plummeted towards the earth. Without his wings, falling from such a height would ensure death, especially being damaged by Naruto like that. Kokebile was caught just before he touched the ground and Naruto simply shouldered Kokebile's heavily damaged body and prepared to fly off. "Are you going to ignore me, Black One?" Deidrig asked from Issei's boosted Heia. Naruto turned to face him and Acnologia decided to respond. "Tisk, you are not worthy of my interest, Red One. Your host is too weak at the moment and I don't think my host would like to fight someone so weak." No other words were exchanged as Naruto took off into the air with Kokebile in hand, leaving behind a group of shocked, confused devils and a pissed of dragon. "That technique of yours sure packs and punch," Azazel commented as he whistled in awe as he saw the battered Kokebile. "Those little wind blades are quite nasty, aren't they?" It was the perfect place to test the Rasen shuriken. Naruto replied as he released a sigh of boredom. Having made it back to the base with Kokebile, Naruto was now relaxing at home with Azazel there snacking as usual. "And I did not expect it to do so much damage. Now that it's completed, I have another attack added to my arsenal." "Don't you think that's a bit of an overkill?" Azazel asked as he munched on a meat bun. "Besides, your destroy dividing is already dangerous enough. What is the point of making another technique that you would hardly use? You know my rival dragon is something not play with. One wrong move I am dead." Naruto responded with a wave of his hand, taking a drink of wine. Azazel was silent for some time before asking in a serious tone, "Did you do that to Kokebile because of what he did to your father?" "How did you?" "That's not important at the moment, Naruto. Did you or did you not?" The boosted gear and the dividing is a true power by a dragon. The boosted gear multiplied the user's power and gave it away. The dividing divides the enemy's power and absorbs it for the user. Their dragon spirits residing in each sacred gear were no exception either. Diedrich the Welsh dragon, Albion the vanishing dragon, and Acknowledge the shadow dragon. The dividing destroys the enemy's power and absorbs it for the user, or it can reflect the power. Welsh dragon and vanishing dragon, emperors in their own right with opposite sets of abilities that fought for dominance over the other. It seemed what they said about opposites was true. They did attract, but not in the way people thought. For centuries both dragons fought. Through their hosts they continued their battle, supremacy versus domination, an endless battle that stretched since the dawn of time itself. Except for the shadow dragon, he was different. As he fought he grew stronger. Every he chose was stronger than last. If he the host was weak, his body would disappear like the dust in the wind. The black dragon grew too strong for the other dragons, so he set a goal for himself to defeat Great Red. You cannot tame the rage within you with this stage power, Acknowledge said as he reprimed his partner for his stubbornness. Adding another source of energy to control will only kill you or worse, but go ahead, I won't stop. Tisk, if I can get it to work, then our power could increase to the level over normal gods, then we will be able to kill him, Naruto responded as he panted softly. His body was covered in blood from his constant training sessions. Though tired and his body hurt, Naruto pushed on and willed himself to continue. Besides, if I die I am taking you with me. That stubbornness is going to be the end of you, Naruto. Acknowledge replied with a sigh. Then again, with this power we'll be able to kill all those beings that call themselves gods. I am glad we are on the same page, Naruto said in a dry chuckle. His face matched his tone quite well. Naruto released a tired sigh and began channeling dark magic with his devil magic around him once more. Determination which was filled with hate and anger for what had happened to his clan. I'll avenge my clan. 3 hours later. My body hurts, it's screaming with agony, Naruto said in a broken tone as his wounds suffered from his previous training session were being bandaged by Kaguya. Wait, what? Ah yes, Kaguya Otsuki, the most powerful woman in the Narutoverse, and Aslo, she has the power to go on pair with Seer's ex Lucifer. She is also Naruto's queen and future wife. You might be wondering how? It is simple. When Naruto figured out he was devil, he gained greed, lust, pride and wrath, so a super being needs a supermate. Kaguya healed. His wounds were so severe that they seemed unlikely to be caused from a mere training session. Naruto had been through worse, and all it took was a few days of rest and his body would have healed, and then his training could continue. You know, for some combat genius you seem to get damaged more than deliver, Kaguya spoke up suddenly. Seeing the annoyed expression that Naruto sent him, Kaguya decided to continue. Azazel said to meet him at the base when your training session was over. Fine, Naruto replied as he sat up from his seated position on the couch and winced slightly as pain erupted from his bandaged wounds. Do you know why Azazel wanted to see me for? Kaguya shook his head in response as Naruto nodded in acceptance and stood up and pulled Kaguya in his arms, bring his hand cupping her cheek. Kaguya was surprised by this, and you could see a heavy blush on her face seeing the intense gaze Naruto was giving. Before she knew, Naruto leaned forward and captured her lips with passion which was filled with love. Not wasting any second of it, she returned the kiss full force. I love you, Naruto said. I love you too, was Kaguya's reply, her face still lost in those ice blue looking deep in her soul which were filled with love, something she never received very much, and that's why she loves him equally. I'll be going now, Naruto said as he left, not waiting for a reply. Naru-kun, it is great to see you again, Azazel said with his usual smile, beaming towards Naruto. I am glad you had taken care of Kokabiel before he could have started a war between the three factions. You did well. Whatever, it is better than going fishing with you, Naruto replied with a smirk of his own, though he wished he had killed Kokabiel, but it was no issue as he had done what had been ordered of him. But I fear Kokabiel was able to speak of our Lord's fate before you could reach Kuo on time, Azazel said as his smile dropped a little before he turned to face Naruto, who seemed to have been not be shocked by the news he had just delivered. And also you are talk of the underworld, Azazel said with a cheerful tone, his eye gleaming with amusement. Naruto accepted the answer, not that he cared about his secret. He gave Azazel his attention once more, Azazel seeing that took it as a sign to continue. But that is not the reason I have brought you here. The reason I have brought you here has to do with your future encounter with the Great Red. Are you really gonna fight me? He looked at Naruto with a serious expression. Did need to think about the question for a second. Naruto truly did desire to fight the Great Red. This battle between the most powerful dragons was a dream he wants to make a reality. All Naruto wanted to do was get stronger. With strength he could avenge the ones precious to him, so fighting a dragon equal to his very own partner would likely help in his path, so his answer was yes. Opening his mouth, Naruto spoke in a confident tone. You should know the answer by now, Azazel. Nothing will stand in my way, even heaven will burn to the burn. I feared you would say that. Azazel sighed, but his smile seemed to brighten. His hands shone with a black light and soon a blade manifested before him. It was beautiful purple and red blade with a guard resembling a dragon's claw. Grabbing hold of the blade, Azazel laid it out before him and offered it to Naruto. This is Devastation, a demon sword wielded by the original Lucifer himself. A blade known for its dragon-slaying capabilities. Naruto was beyond shocked. His eyes were the size of dinner plates. How could he not be shocked? The sword was granting him one of the most prized and well-guarded weapons in their arsenal. Azazel, thanks. Taking hold of Devastation, Naruto began testing the blade's balance in his hand. Finding it perfect, Naruto couldn't help but smile. Acknowledge confused with the blade? Naruto asked as now sat in the training grounds with Devastation in his hands. Such a powerful weapon, now we have a way to slay other dragons. Acknowledge commented as he thought about his partner's question. Naruto waited patiently for his dragon to answer his question. My, with this sword we can kill that red stain in the dimensional gap. Just hold the sword with your two hands, give it my power. Naruto nodded as he held Devastation with his two hands, focusing on it. Only after a while the sword began to turn black before it sank into his body. Currently, your body is above Satan level and your magic reserves are massive. I would have to you are capable of having infinite power, Acknowledge replied. With Devastation in our arsenal, we can double our energy intake and use the blade as high excess magic power. That would increase our performance and power output in battle by a dramatic level, Naruto mused. Though he was a genius in combat. Having the mental fortitude to think of plans on the spot. Morning. Issei was walking towards Kuo Academy as he moved ahead without Asia. Earlier, both Issei and Asia learned that Rias had something important to do for the meeting of the three faction leaders. Issei was surprised, yesterday at dusk, to learn about where it was going to take place. Flashback. Issei was in front of Rias, who looked peeved on what happened earlier in the pool. Issei was surprised when he heard Zenobia call out to him. Zenobia? What took you so long? Issei questioned the former exorcist. Zenobia plainly answered, I've never worn a swimsuit before. It took me a while to put it on. Where she looked down at her two-piece suit. Do I look weird? She asked. You've never worn one? Is it because you're from the church? The brunette boy asked back. I was never interested in recreational activities like these. Zenobia replied. It still took way too long, though. Issei muttered back. You're right about that. The truth of it is that I took some time to think about some things. Zenobia said. Issei was curious about what she was thinking about. She then asked Issei for a favor, which was to help her become a mother by giving her children, which Issei was to be the father. She confessed that she was lost for a bit, but she talked it over with Rias, where she gave her some advice. With that, she found a new purpose, since her old purpose to serve God was dead. Her new purpose was to become a woman as well as have a life as one and have strong children. Issei was surprised, but before he could do or say anything, Zenobia took him and threw him into a storage room where the two of them were alone. Issei asked Zenobia on what she was doing, where she explained it to him. Zenobia moved forward as she embraced him, which Issei was still unable to move from the awkward moment. Make love with me. As long as it's your child, I won't question anything you do. Zenobia declared. Issei just stuttered as he was still shocked at the moment in front of him. Before they could go any further, they both heard two voices that made Issei's blood turn cold. Although, doing it in a storage room is kinky for some couples, I think it would be better if you do it in a love hotel room, or your bedroom first. Don't you agree, Rias? Issei. Rias said in an unpleasant, angry tone. Both Issei and Zenobia turned to see that the storage room door was open. Stood in front of it was Rias, behind her was Asia, and Kaneko stood by as they witness it, where Asia shouted unpleasantly as not being the one in the situation that the two were in. Issei was going to say something, but Zenobia beat him to it as she continued on about giving her his child. Everyone was stunned or surprised about Zenovia's statement, where the only thing the perverted brunette could do was shout in frustration and fear. "My goodness, Issei, why are you indecent?" Rias stated. Issei was about to answer, but Zenobia stepped in by saying that Issei was helping her get pregnant. Issei retorted, "Can you just keep quiet?" shouted at the newest knight. Before things could go any further, they all heard a cheerful tone, where they all then turned back to see the teleported entrance of Sirzek's Lucifer and his queen, Graphia. Everyone, but Rias, Asia, and Zenobia bowed down. Formally greeting himself to Rias' final bishop and newest knight, Rias questioned on why her brother was doing here. He explained that he and their father will be here tomorrow for Parents' Day, which Rias figured out that it was Graphia that told him. The red-hair princess then asked on why he was doing here, since she wasn't as important as his duties as Satan. "I'm visiting for work, too," Sirzek said, where they were curious on what he meant. "I would like to host the conference for the three factions here, in this academy," Sirzek stated, which surprised everyone. End flashback. After that, both the Devil King and Graphia slept over for the night at Issei's home, where Rias was staying as well. In the morning, Rias escorted Sirzek around with Graphia while Issei and Asia went to school. They stopped by Zenovia's apartment building, where Asia went to see if she was alright since she wasn't outside at their meeting point. This led to Issei going to school ahead of them. Issei's thoughts stopped when he felt his left arm beat in a strange sensation of pain that alerted him to something. He stopped walking on the stone bridge that connected him to the school to look around. As he looked in front of him, where Kuo entrance, exit gates are located, he saw an older teenager resting his back on the wall. The person was a young handsome man with dark silver hair and light blue eyes. He wore street clothes that made him look like a bad boy. Issei watched as the young man calmly walked towards him but stopped about 2 to 3 meters away from him. "This is our first time meeting, huh?" said the stranger, where Issei was confused on what he said. The young man then continued on with his speech. "Welsh Dragon, Emperor of the Red Dragon, Hyodo Issei." That surprised Issei since this person knows him. Before he could ask him, the young man introduced himself. "I am Vali, Emperor of the White Dragon, the Vanishing Dragon." Hearing that the person was the Vanishing Dragon, Issei thought about it, where his arm began to pulse in pain. He was distracted by it that he didn't even notice Vali was now in front of him with his arm extended, having his finger pointing at his head. "You're defenseless?" Vali stated. "For instance, right now I could use a magical," he began to say before he was interrupted by 2 swords that converge on his neck. Standing on both Vali's sides, Kiba and Zenobia had their swords out ready to strike at the Vanishing Dragon. Knowing that the two had their swords on his throat didn't change his confident grin. "Is this going too far to be a simple joke?" Kiba stated. "We can't let you start a fight with the Emperor of Red Dragon here, Emperor of White Dragon," Zenobia stated. As the three looked at Vali, Asia came to Issei's side, where he told to stay behind him. Seeing this form of aggression, Vali only grinned at their attempt. TPS. "Don't even try it. You couldn't defeat Kokebiel, so you can't hold a candle against me. If you don't mind people seeing us, then by all means, go ahead," Vali suggested to them. Hearing that Vali is strong, everyone around him became nervous since they know where they stand in that point. Before things could go any further, everyone, including Vali, was surprised on what they heard next. "As boring as this meeting is going on, we have somewhere to be, brother." Vali slightly turned his head to see was Naruto leaning on the bridge rail. Rias and her peerage turned to see a blonde the style like Sting Eucliffe, haired handsome teen. He has icy blue eyes that could freeze hell. He is wearing a long white shirt, on top of it is a black winter coat with white fur. With skinny gray pants and black Vans. Around his neck is a Jashin necklace. He has black earrings. In total, he looked like a man who could steal your girl with one look. All the girls could not help but blush. "No, not really. I only came to greet my rival, that's all, brother," Vali replied. Hearing that the two of them were brothers was something that nobody actually ever imagined. Before they could say anything, Vali continued to chat with his future opponent. "Hyodo Issei, where do you think you rank in power among the people of the world?" questioned Vali. Nani? Issei absent-mindedly said. Your balance breaker, although is incomplete, is a 4-digit from the top. It ranks somewhere between 1 and 1,500. No, considering the strength of the host, probably lower. Vali explained. What is it that you're trying to say? Issei asked in frustration. Hyodo Issei is a rare gem, very much worth training, Rias Gremory. Vali stated. Issei turned back to see that Rias was behind them with Akano and Kaneko right next to her. Rias walked up to him where she asked on why the vanishing dragon was here, where she was curious about his arrival and also his so-called brother, who by the way looked amused by the situation. In the past, the Welsh dragon and vanishing dragon, the red and white, have caused all they meet to lead miserable lives. How are things working out for you? He smugly asked the Crimson Hair King. Wait, who is he? What do you mean he is your brother? Is he a fallen angel or what? Shouted Issei as he pointed at Naruto. Even the peerage was curious, not sensing him when he arrived. Did you forget me already, Red One? Naruto asked with a playful tone in his voice. Seeing Issei glaring, he decided not be an ass. I am Naruto Namakis, also known as the Shadow Dragon, or you can call me the Black Dragon Emperor. Issei was shocked seeing another Dragon Emperor. He did not forget the battle between him and Kokebiel. He was not the only shocked. Rias, Kaneko and the rest were now shacking seeing two powerhouses together. Naruto seeing the tension gleams with excitement. But do not worry about me, I am just here back, a piece of trash I lost, Naruto stated and chuckled seeing Vali giving him a death glare. I'm not here to fight today, Vali said as he started to walk away from them. I have a lot of things to attend to, Vali explained before he stopped and looked back at Naruto. By the way, just to let your roommate know, I'm passing a message to you from Azazel. He isn't coming today considering the situation they are in. Vali stated. I see, better be going, Naruto bidding farewell. Same to you, brother, Vali replied as he continued on his way. Once Vali was gone, everyone breathed a sigh of relief, but the troubling moment still remained. Naruto just sighed, saying that his older brother is always like this, even when they were little. Naruto could see that Rias and Akano were gazing at him with questionable looks on their faces. What are you still doing? Rias asked, still feeling a dread in his stomach. I am just here to give my lil dragon brother advice, Naruto stated before he looked Issei dead in the eyes. Issei could not help but flinch at those powerful eyes. Red Dragon Emperor with the devil from the Gremory worth 8 pawns, Naruto mused to himself. I hope you better than the last time, Red One, because your fight with your rival might lead to your death at the moment. Hearing that, peerage could not help but feel dread in their stomach become worse. Naruto decided with a few last words. Do not forget what I told you. After that he vanished from their view. Although he won't say it out loud, even Naruto was worrying about his lil brother. Gasper is currently reside and saw that Issei is training Gasper in controlling his abilities. From what he is seeing, Gasper managed to make some progress as he managed to stop the time of the ball and it is now floating in midair. Not far from them, Asia is also cheering for Gasper. Kaneko is standing at the distance, eating a pack of chips. Good job, Gasper. If you keep it up, then our dream will become a reality in no time. Encouraged Issei and gained a pervert grin on his face. What dream Issei-san is talking about, Gasper-kun? Wondered Asia curiously. Hi, his dream is for me to freeze all him, Gasper began to tell Asia cheerfully. However, before that Issei quickly covered his mouth with his palm and interrupted. Ahaha, our dream is to become stronger and manlier, right, Gasper? Issei looked at Gasper in hope for him to understand what to imply to him, to which the latter understood and nodded his head. When Issei released him, Gasper exclaimed. Hi, we want to become stronger and manlier. I see, that is a great goal, Asia replied with a soft smile. One more time, Gasper, exclaimed Issei with hidden arrow flames in his eyes. It seems he is really fire up and determined for Gasper to master his ability so that he could turn his ultimate pervert to reality. Hi, Issei-senpai, exclaimed Gasper and grinned widely. Issei threw the ball at Gasper only for Gasper to freeze his right arm. Kaneko's sweat dropped at their stupid failure. Elsewhere, Azazel is looking down at the sight below him in bore. He is sitting on top of a bridge and looking how the cars are moving back and forth. Suddenly he said while looking forward. Such a wonderful sight, right? He is addressing to the two young men that are standing behind him with the one with his hands in his pockets. Said young man is looking boredly at Azazel's back while the other is leaning on the railing with his eyes closed. You came here just to sightseeing, Azazel? Naruto asked without bothering to open his eyes. Azazel turned back with a grin and waved his hand in dismiss. Ma, what's wrong to enjoy sightseeing, eh? Vali sighed and said seriously. Enough with that goofy attitude. But should we really be present at the summit? Of course. You are Hakuriko after all, and also we have to represent the new Black Emperor Dragon, replied Azazel simply. Say, Azazel, the war won't happen again after the summit, right? Wondered Vali, looking slightly solemn. Well, we will do our best for that to not happen, stated Azazel. He thought for a bit and decided to ask, what do you think of Naruto-kun? Naruto recalled the face of the ever-calm and stated with a bored tone, how should I say this? I simply do not care about the three factions. As long as they stay out of my way, there will be no need for blood to spilled, Naruto said with a cold tone. Azazel saw the hatred on Naruto's face and stated, do not let the past control you. Naruto opened his eye and looked at Azazel. Instead of a blue eye it was red with 3 tomas spinning widely. If you think I am just a foolish kid ruled by emotions, that is fine. Following your path would have been childish, the whispering of fools who do not know pain and hatred. If anyone else tries to ridicule the way I live, I will slaughter everyone they cared about, and then maybe they'll understand how it tastes to feel a little of my hatred. Azazel hearing that said nothing more to change him. He was dedicated, he can give him that, but is stuck in the past, nothing can do now and hope for best. So Vali, anything about your rival? Recalling Issei's poor skills when they met for the second time, Vali shook his head in disappointment. That is one poor excuse of Sakuryute. Unless he could really pull out a miracle, he will become equal or half of my strength. But right now, I think he is a disgrace to the previous host of Boosted Gear. Hell, I even wondered why Boosted Gear chose him as a host. Quote, Naruto nodded his head and named out the sacred gear. Boosted Gear in the hands of a weakling. I do not know if I should pity the dragon or be amused by the host. My rival like that is not worth fighting. Even if God has died, sacred gear could be considered equally to God. Nothing will be more satisfyingly to defeat him with my own hands, stated Vali with battle lust in his eyes. Hey, words worthy of Hakuriko, stated Azazel with smirk. Naruto just snorted to Azazel's words and just gazing afar, shadowed Oregon. The day of the summit. Outside, it was a nice day at the Kuo Academy. The sky was cleared of any clouds, but suddenly a space was ripped out, and out of there a young girl with expressionless face flew out of the rip. She landed elegantly and sat at the iron column at the top of the building. Suddenly, she turned around as she felt a presence behind her. Behind her, floating with his divine dividing, is none other than Vali. Ah, Vali, I see you will be participating on this summit as well, exclaimed the girl with empty eyes. Vali put his gaze down at the girl in front of him and stated, Ophis, I see you come here to observe Naruto-san, am I right? Ophis has the appearance of a girl with gray pupil-less eyes and dark hair that reached her hips. Her face always remained expressionless, as such a being as her could rarely felt surprise or interest in anything. Her attire consists of a black gothic Lolita fashion. But one thing that caught your eyes is her overwhelming aura and her unusual pointy ears. They slightly resemble vampires, but also differ from them. The girl, Ophis, is actually one of the most powerful and ancient being in the world. The dragon god of infinity, or Ouroboros dragon. She always thought that she and Baka Red are the only omnipotent being born in this world. But who would have thought that after such a long time, the third entity will be born? Yes, as the being of infinity power and wisdom, Ophis knew of the potential of the ultimate. However, the day when he will reach her and Baka Red still yet to come. As he is now, he can surely fight back most of powerful beings. However, his power is still slight yield in compared to mythological gods. The reason Ophis come here is to see Naruto's power firsthand, and how will he deal with Katsuya and Samuel simultaneously. Yeah, I heard he is extremely powerful, so I came here to witness what he is made of with my own eyes, replied Ophis with her poker face as usual. Well, I would like to see just how much that poor excuse of Dragon Host improved, exclaimed Vali with his bloodthirsty grin. Ophis glanced at Vali's expression and stated, You are still a fighting maniac like ever, eh? Vali just shrugged his shoulders and retort. Well, I didn't want for things to be boring. And peace is very boring. OCR clubroom. Meanwhile at the clubroom, Rias and her peerages have gathers preparing to go to the summit. However, not everyone is going to the summit. Gasper must stay in place because of his uncontrolled power and to assure that everything will be alright with him. Rias left Kaneko to look after him. Well, it's time for us to depart, exclaimed Rias, then kneeled down at Gasper, who had found a favorite place in the carton box. Gasper, be a good boy and stay here alright. And don't key your power goes out of control or the consequence will be very bad, okay? Gasper nodded his head curtly and leaned in when Rias rubbed his head encouragingly. Don't worry, Kaneko will be here with you. Rias turned to Kaneko and stated. I am counting on you, Kaneko. Kaneko bowed down slightly and replied. I will do my best to protect Ga-kun when you are absent, bucko. Rias nodded her head in acceptance. Issei kneeled down at now his buddy and gave him his old Game Boy to Gasper. I brought this to you, so you don't feel bored out of your mind. Gasper accepted with a smile and replied. Arigato, Issei-senpai. Issei ruffed hair and thought to himself, slightly worried for Gasper. Even with Kaneko by his side, I am still feeling worry for Gasper. Kaneko brought a box of snacks and put down at the table. And I brought lots of snacks for you. Issei clutched his fists slowly and felt that he indeed become much stronger than he was before. He would have said thank you to Naruto if he was good terms with him, but he wasn't. He knew well enough that preparing him for his fight with Vali is only part of the reason. So what is going in that bastard mind? Meeting room. Rias knocked the door and asked a permission to enter. When permission was granted, she and the other kid saw the leaders of all three factions were already there. Additional, she could saw Sona and Tsubaki present there. From the underworld, Searsex Lucifer and Seraphal Leviathan represented the devil's side. Graphia Lucifuge also was present there as a guardian. Seraphal sneak a look at Naruto with the corner of her eyes, and of course, Rias, Akano and Xenovia trying to be as calm as they could. Seraphal was far too straightforward. From the heaven, Michael represented the angel's side. But not far behind him stood one very familiar figure to Rias' peerage, especially Xenovia. Yes, it was none other than Irina Shido. She actually came here to find out about why Xenovia betrayed them. And what actually happened after she was sent away to the hospital. For some reason, no one told her anything about that. But she still managed to find out about God's death. And certainly, she was depressed and devastated as well as shocked at the news. But she slowly overcome her depressing mood and come here for the summit. She knew that she will find all her answers after this summit, as she will have a chance to ask Naruto directly about what happened during Kokebiel incident. From the Grigori, Azazel represented the side of fallen angel. And not far from him stood Vali with crossed arms. Leaned back at the wall behind, and next to him was Naruto wearing a long black shirt showing off his fully developed muscles, and was also wearing a pair of ripped jeans with black sneakers. Issei locked eyes with Vali and both narrowed their eyes. This is my sister and her peerage. Now we could start this summit, said Searsex and interlaced his fingers in front his face. Okay, now let's start the meeting, proposed Azazel with a grin. Scene change. Rias and Sona read their report about an accident with Kokebiel, informing the leaders of three factions. When they finished their report, Rias stated, everything in this report is truth and only truth. That I swear. All the leaders nodded their head in acceptance. Rias and Sona stepped back, though Seraphal decided to thank them. Arigato, Rias, Sona-chan. Sona flushed a bit at seeing her sister's mature side and stepped back with Rias. And now I would like to ask the person that single-handedly defeat one of the leader of Grigori. Michael looked Naruto with his usual kind look. Just how long were you aware of the existence of Black Dragon? And why decided to reveal it now? I am afraid the answer why he decided to reveal his existence should be addressed to me, Azazel butt in looking at the leader of angels. I was the one that ordered for Naruto to reveal his status. Because I felt that somehow sooner or later you will find out about him. But why did you decide to hide such a powerhouse from us, Azazel, wondered Searsex curiously. Even if the war has ended, I did really trust angels or devils. I know that Naruto-kun could take care of himself. However, judging by Naruto-kun's status, he will be targeted by other factions as well. As such, I decided to hide Naruto's identity till he really could stand by himself, explained Searsex. Were you aware that Naruto-san was the Black Dragon when you picked him up, Azazel-san? Asked Michael, turning to Crimson Satan. Of course not, Michael-kun. When I find that I was shocked myself at how unpredictable Naruto-kun is, chuckled Azazel and glanced at Naruto. The question though, Azazel-san, why Kokabiel decided to start a war? Asked Sirzex, calmly meeting gaze with Azazel. Azazel took a breath and replied. He did that without my permission or without my notice. That prick was always a warmonger. He seemed to be frustrated that the previous war ended by the peace treaty. He believed that if it will continue that our side will win. Sigh, what a brainless lunatic. Azazel rubbed his temples lightly. Still, he was one of your men. You shouldn't have letting him take free action so carelessly, retort Michael. However, Azazel just turned a knowing gaze at Michael. Well, that's actually logical. However, we all came here to sign a treaty, right? Then let's sign it quickly, replied Azazel with a nod of his own. Sirzex suddenly gained a strange mischievous grin that unnerves Naruto. Well, if you wanted to sign that treaty so bad, Azazel-san, then I may as well sign it for you. But I have one interesting proposition that I've already offered Odin-sama from Asgard in hope to gain an alliance with Asgard as well. Vali glanced at Naruto in amusement and curiosity. When he saw Naruto clench his jaws, he did not expect that the leaders of 3 factions will strengthen the alliance with Asgard. He didn't know should he pity him or feel excited. Before we sign this treaty, I'd like to know the opinion of the ones that indirectly involve with 3 factions, requested Azazel, then looked at Issei Sakuryute, and pointed his big finger behind Hikaryuko, then glanced at Naruto. And of course Naruto-kun, the Shadowed Oregon. What do you guys think about the treaty? I don't mind, as long as there is a worthy opponent for me, Vali replied carelessly and slightly glancing at Naruto with excitement in his eyes. Che, even without the war, there are dozens of worthy opponent for you, Vali? Respond Azazel with a shrug. Oh, but I don't think so, retort Vali with a bloodthirsty smirk. Then what about you, Sakuryute? Asked Azazel, turning his gaze to the pervert pawn. Issei saw his gaze direct at him and felt slightly nervous. Well, I don't know. It's difficult to answer such a serious question right away, for me. Seeing Issei's hesitation, Azazel decided to add, what is here to hesitate? I heard you want a harem. Could you imagine having a harem consists of girls from different factions? As if to imply what he wanted to say. Issei's eyes started to shine brightly and he began to drool at the fantasy. So succumbing to his libido, Issei nodded and shouted, yes, I am for peace. Peace is the best. Rias and Akano actually covered their face from embarrassment. While Naruto sighed at Issei's pervert antics. Sona glanced disapprovingly at Issei. Sirzex and Azazel laughed hard at his reply. Then what about you? Asked Michael, turning his gaze to the Black Dragon. Naruto turned his icy gaze at Michael, crossed his arms and stated, that's fine. I do not have any interest in this peace. As long as no one dares to keep me from having my revenge, Naruto said coolly. Some of the people in room felt unnerved by the statement. What is this revenge of yours, Naruto-san? Michael asked, looking at the young blonde teen. Killing those who betrayed my clan, Naruto said with his eyes showing no emotion. Then it settles then. We will sign the treaty right away, said Azazel, eyes smiling. Outside near the abandoned building, unknown to all those that were in Summit, a certain group had sneaked in the Kuo and attempted to kidnap Gasper Vladi for their plan. They are planning to complete Gasper's forbidden Balor view to balance breaker to freeze time from those in the Summit. They were called magician, humans with unnatural ability to use magic. However, they were not the only one that were waiting for the right moment to strike. Fallen angel Samuel and his followers were also waiting for the other side to make their move so they could make theirs. Their goal is simple: to kill Naruto. Prepare yourself, Namakis, today is the last day that you will draw a breath, said Samuel with his voice full of hared. The wind around him began to pick up and blow harshly. 10 wings behind his back. While Gasper is carelessly playing his Game Boy given by Issei, Kaneko felt an uneasy feeling creeping to them. Being a Nekosho, Kaneko was very sensitive to dangerous situations. And right now, she is looking out of the window to check out the situation outside. Kaneko widened her eyes a bit, seeing some foreign figures floating on magic circle and preparing to invade this place. In this entire building, only her and Gasper resided. That means their target is either her or Gasper. They sure picked a convenient moment to appear. That also means that they were aware of the three factions summit. Hurriedly, Kaneko picked up the carton box which Gasper was currently sitting in. Gasper felt himself being raised up and looked down at Kaneko questionably. "Is something wrong, Kaneko-chan?" Kaneko didn't reply back but stared expressionlessly at the door. In that moment the door was burst out revealing several figures with black robes with hoods covering their faces. The hood has the imprint of an eye on it. "What do you guys need?" asked Kaneko calmly and put the carton with Gasper on her shoulder. With Rook's strength, she could carry him without problem. "TCH, there is still a rat here, EHM?" "Never mind that. Hand over that vampire to us now, Chibi," demanded the figure standing in the center. "Nope," replied Kaneko simply and began to run away quickly. "Don't let her escape," ordered the magician in the center. The rest nodded their heads and began to shot beams from the center eye on the hood. Kaneko tried her best to escape, but the enemies outnumber her and also using long-range magic attacks. She needs to protect Gasper and defend against the attacks at the same time, which proved really difficult to her. Kaneko is a close-range combat fighter. Facing against multiply long-range fighters clearly put her in huge disadvantage. In the end, both she and Gasper were captured with minor injuries due to enemies' attacks. "Gomen, I've failed you. Rias bucko, everyone," that was Kaneko's last thought before she knocked unconscious. Back to the summit. The three leaders of their factions have successfully signed the treaty. Everyone sighed in relief as due to this treaty there will be no conflicts between them anymore. Naruto was trying to come to terms with the fact that the Asgard was part of the treaty. He will be betrothed with this information. Oh well, nothing goes according to plan, maybe they will understand if not. Naruto mentally smirked with his dark thoughts. "Well, now that the treaty is signed I propose to celebrate it," proposed Azazel with a wide grin. Vali behind him just turned his gaze out of the window. Outside, he saw the floating figure of Ophis, which is waving at him. Ophis allowed only Vali to sense her presence, that's why the others couldn't feel her. "Yosh, I propose a bikini party at the pool in Buku's house? However, all girls must be topless," proposed Issei enthusiastically with a pervert grin on his face. Blood began to pour from his nose. Azazel laughed out loud at Issei's proposal. The rest chuckled at the idea, minus Rias, Grafia and Sona. But they also admit the idea is not that bad. "Now, Issei, calm down. Or else you will die from blood lost." Rias shook his head and approached him. However, the moment she touched him, something strange happened. Everybody within the room was frozen except Mouse, Naruto, Grafia, Michael, Azazel, holy sword wielders, two heavenly dragons and herself. "What happened?" wondered Issei in shock. "It seems time was stopped by someone," deduced Sirzex with narrowed eyes. "But it didn't work on us, those with incredible power," said Naruto and referred to himself, Mouse, Azazel, Michael and Grafia. "And us, those with heavenly dragon's powers," Vali referred to himself and Issei. "And it also didn't work on holy sword wielders," Azazel referred to Yuto, Zenobia and Irina. Rias find herself grateful to Issei as thanks to his draconic powers, she wasn't frozen like others. "Thank you, Issei. Your power protected me," Rias thanked him sincerely. "And no problem, bucko." Issei felt himself flush a bit being praised by his bucko. Suddenly they heard a strange sound and looked outside to see that there was a huge teleportation portal above them in the sky. Out of the portal, dozens of magicians descended and shoot magic beams annihilating the soldiers of all three factions. "A huge teleportation portal was casted above us?" muttered Sirzex earnestly. "But who are they?" wondered Issei curiously. "They are magicians," Azazel answered his question. "Shame on them, to imitate a magician girl like me," complained Seraphal with a frown. She reversed back to her childish personality. "But who could do something like this?" wondered Michael gazing out of the window seeing his force being destroyed by magicians little by little. "It's possibly the power of that vampire. They power it up and complete it to the level of balance breaker," assumed Azazel. "This is Gasper's power?" asked Issei incredulously. He didn't aware that Gasper power will be this great. Those who can resist against this magic can't only be count on hands. However, if his power is gonna grow. Naruto didn't finish his sentence because he felt one more very powerful presence outside. And it seems so one really serious decided to appear for my head as well. Azazel narrowed his eyes and looked out of the window. In the middle of this mayhem, a lone figure with 10 wings is floating in the sky. For some reason, this figure only aimed at soldier devils to kill. Samuel, muttered Azazel quietly, but those in the room could still hear him. So he used this chance to get rid of Naruto-kun, eh? I should expect this to happen. So that figure over there is one of the fallen archangels, Samuel, eh? If he could still move under the influence of Gasper's power, then he must be incredibly powerful, stated Naruto to himself, staring at Samuel, who is enjoying the kill of devil soldiers. Naruto, muttered Irina and looked worriedly at her crush. Which I will explain later. Zenobia stayed silent, but she was also shocked at the appearance of one of fallen archangel. She knew her power is not enough to assist her master. Seraphal narrowed her eyes at Samuel's figure far away from them. Like hell she will let some stupid warmonger fallen archangel kill her future boy toy. She blushed at the dirty things she was gonna do to him. Graphia also kept silent, however she was not worried for Naruto's safety. Rather she wanted to see how Naruto's strength will up against one of fallen archangels. Samuel is strong, that is no doubt. If that is true, then we must save Gasper right away. He is from my peerage and is a member of my family. I will go rescue him, Ni-sama, requested Rias determinedly. Members of her peerage were taken hostage. That's such a disgrace to her family. But how? Someone casted a nullifying magic to teleportation. Our teleportation magic is useless now, wondered Sirzex, glaring outside, seeing his force being eliminated while he is helpless to help them here. In the abandoned building, I have a rook piece that haven't used yet, explained Rias, looking at her brother. I see. You want to use castling move, eh? Sirzex understood what his sister planned to do. Rias nodded her head for confirmation. Castling move? Wondered Issei confusedly. It's a special move in chess that exchange the position of king and rook, explained Yuto. If we use your powers, then we could transfer one more person with her, Sirzex-sama, added Graphia, that was standing behind Sirzex. Naruto looked outside the window and stated, someone is eager to see me. I can't disappoint him now, right? Naruto clearly indicates the figure of Samuel, who is killing the devil soldiers with great satisfaction. Irina looked in concern at Naruto and said, be careful there, Naruto. Please, when I return I wanted to see you in one piece. When everyone heard the concern for the young teen from the Exocrist were shocked except for Azazel and Michael. Vali looked at Naruto and then Irina. Something was going between them, but he just let it go for now. Naruto smiled at her and replied, what are you talking about? I don't plan to die anytime soon. Even if my opponent is a crow, I have no intention to lose to him. Take care of my sister, Issei-kun, requested Sirzex, looking at Issei. I will protect her with my life, exclaimed Issei and stabbed his fist to his chest like making a vow. It's time to test how much stronger he has become. If taking back that half-vampire is so difficult to you, then maybe I will do that for you instead, proposed Vali arrogantly. Teme, shouted Issei and gritted his teeth in silent anger. Try to read the situation, Vali. We are here for peace after all, Azazel intervened as he didn't need for Issei and Vali picked a fight this moment. Fine, it's just that I don't like to do nothing. That's too boring, replied Vali carelessly and shrugged his shoulder. Then go outside and entertain our guests a bit, proposed Azazel with a smirk. Seeing Hikuryuko all of a sudden will sure cause some panics in their rank. Okay, better than sitting in one place and do nothing, Vali replied back with a shrug and activate his divine dividing and flew outside. Outside, Vali flew up high with a smirk on his face as he attracted enemies' attention to him. He stood in a pose and shouted, balance, break. Slowly his body was covered by blue shining orbs in the area of knees, wrists and chest. And then scale mail of Vanishing Dragon appeared on his body. Vanishing Dragon, balance breaker, shouted Divine Dividing when Vali finished his transformation. Inside, Issei looked in wonder as Vali transformed to balance breaker form so easily. He can do it so easily, while I can't even transform in it after giving up my left hand. I wonder, can I do it now after that hellish training? Well, if you want to know that, then I can tell you, Aibo. As you are now, you can transform to that form, but only for 10 minutes. That's your limit for now. Despite those hellish training physically, you aren't ready yet to reach the complete form yet, informed Diedrich, which caused Issei to sigh either in relief or in disappointment. Either way, if he could somehow defeat Vali in 10 minutes, then his training will be paid off. Outside, Vali waited for the enemies to attack him and wasn't disappointed. The moment Vali transformed, magicians began to assault him with beams. However, Vali deflected them all with a defense magic of his own. To counter-attack them, he created a white ball of energy and swings it to release it. As a result, all the magicians that were in the radius of the attack were demolished. However, because the summoning circle was still there, enemies continued to descend from it. Inside, seeing how easily Vali annihilates the enemies made Issei widened his eyes on awe and a bit of fright. Wow, he is extremely powerful. To destroy so many enemies with a single attack like that, muttered Issei. Yeah, but his power has a sense of dangerous in it, commented Zenobia, who was observing as well. Outside, Samuel saw the appearance of Hakuriko, however he is waiting for that blasphemy to appear to eradicate him with his own hand. He knew that someone like Naruto won't ever run away from a fight, that's why he is patiently waiting for Naruto to confront him himself. His forces has finally finished the annihilation of devil soldiers. Currently they are waiting for his commands and were on standby. Come out, the blasphemy, you can't expect for me to wait for you here forever, muttered Samuel with an evil grin. Inside, Naruto turned his gaze away from Vali and began to float while said, I am gonna greet my prey. Azazel, keep Irina safe. One scratch on her your head is won the line. And with that, Naruto flew straight to the direction where Samuel is currently located. Irina raised her hand and attempted to say something, but Naruto was already gone. She feels incredibly worried for him at this moment. After all, one of fallen archangels has come for his life. Even if he has 10 wings like Kokabiel, Samuel was far stronger than him. In fact, his strength was inferior only to 4 great archangel. Irina felt a hand was put gently on her shoulder and looked at it. The owner of that hand was Michael. Naruto will be okay. We need to stay focused on the situation will become worst. Irina stated at Michael for a minute, then nodded her head in agreement. You are right, Naruto is strong. Nothing will happen to him. I need to focus. Rias took Issei's hand in hers and stated, Ni-sama, we are ready. Issei blushed at the contact, feeling how softly and delicate her hand is. Sirzex nodded his head and began to cast his spell. He then looked at Issei and requested, Issei-kun, please protect Rias. I will protect her with my life, exclaimed Issei. The Gremory circle appeared under them and they were transported away. In their stead a rook piece was replaced and fell to the ground. Naruto versus Samuel. Samuel felt a presence is coming at him with high speed and smirked widely. When Naruto is floating opposite of him, his force prepared for battle by standing in battle stance. Finally, you decided to appear, Namakis, exclaimed Samuel loudly and pointing at his opponent accusingly. Naruto didn't reply him back right away, but gazed around him, seeing lots of fallen angels were glaring at him daggers. He turned his attention back to Samuel and began to talk. So you are fallen archangel Samuel? Don't know why you are so disgusted with my presence, however it does not matter, a bug like you does not pose a threat to my life. No matter, I could just enjoy killing you, Naruto stated with a dark chuckle. Samuel scoffed and shouted, enough talking, we hate your existing. Your father killed many of our kind, we will have our revenge. Just as he said that, the other angels began to assault Naruto with the holy weapons. Samuel decided to step down to the back row to observe Naruto's ability first. Do not refer to me as that, false god. Samuel yelled at the floating god. Now don't be that way, I'm just messing with ya. Naruto responded with a chill smile. I told you not to call me that. Samuel yelled in before flinging a barrage of light spear attacks at Naruto. Naruto responded by forming a mini Rasen shuriken at the tip of each and throw them as if they were normal shurikens. The resulting explosions rocked the entire school ground as the 2 golden energies of different makes collided. Whoa, calm down, Sam-chan. That could have really hurt. Naruto said with a fake startled expression on his face. That's the point, you insufferable being. Now I find that offensive. Naruto said while wagging his finger at Samuel. Right now I'm in a good mood, trust me. You don't want me to show you most venomous side. His smile became much more predatory. This smile managed to temporarily unnerve Samuel, which caused him to be even more pissed. Damn you! Samuel formed his largest light spear yet and sent it speeding at Naruto. You always were thick, weren't you? Naruto's smile became frown as the light spear closed in on him. To those below it looked like sure hit, but a sound that sounded mysteriously like thousands of chirping birds filled the air as the spear of lightning pierced through the attack. I'd appreciate it if you would stop sending such feeble attacks at me, Crow. Naruto's voice had become strangely much more threatening and serious. His smile then returned as the heavy atmosphere disappeared. So, do you want to have a bad time? Naruto's right eye cracked open to reveal a Sharingan eye with cross-slitted pupils. Inside, Senjutsu. Azazel muttered. What was that? Searsx Gremory questioned. Naruto-kun is using Senjutsu. Back with Naruto. Samuel gritted his teeth before forcibly calming himself down. You're purposely making me angry, aren't you? Oh, you finally figured it out, Sam-chan. Guess that means I should take you a bit seriously, huh? As he said that, his purple aura washed over his clothing, causing the black side to change to a glowing purple with black magatama appearing along the collar. His black side remained the same, but gained purple magatama along the collar. Yes, you should be. Samuel growled out as a sword made of light appearing in his hands. Oh, is it sword fight time? Good thing I brought Kusanagi-e? As he said that, a long katana appeared in his left hand. He held it in a reverse grip. Samuel glared at the god and then charged straight at him at god speed. Naruto readied his blade in front of himself as he watched Samuel approach. Clang! The sound of the blades connecting would have been able to be heard from miles away if it weren't for the barrier. Samuel then proceeded to jab his blade at Naruto at a speed that would make it look like he had grown 1,000 arms. Naruto danced in the air through each jab, still only keeping his right eye open. Enough! Samuel slashed his blade, causing a crescent-shaped wave to hurtle straight at Naruto. Naruto placed 3 of Chakra massive tails in front of himself to block the attack and then sent 3 others to attack Samuel. Samuel parried each tail away before charging at Naruto, whose smile widened as the tails whipped around and attacked Samuel from was seemingly pierced in 3 separate places, his head and both his lungs, but he faded into light particles instead that floated away and quickly reformed into Samuel behind Naruto. He raised his blade to strike down Naruto, but was blocked by another tail. Naruto's smile widened even further as he stared over his shoulder at Samuel, whose frown had turned into a mad grin. This is boring. Let's speed up a bit, K? Back with the others. For those present, the blitz of attacks had happened far too fast for any of them to see. It was as if they were watching a battle between true gods. Azazel, how come I've never heard of this? Searsx was not arrogant enough to claim she knew every single powerful being god. Because he does not want attention. Azazel replied. Back with Naruto. The battle had truly speed up as the 10-winged fallen angel and the 10-tailed god clashed throughout the air. Shockwaves could be seen as the raged all around. The red would send out one of tails and block it with his sword and continue to press his offense. Naruto kept his distance and only occasionally block an attack with his blade. Samuel grew tired of this back and forth and summoned a barrage of light spears at Naruto. Naruto responded by whipping out name 9 of his tails to block the steady barrage. Samuel's smile widened even further as he started firing light spears at even faster speed. As the blasts kept being blocked by Naruto tails, light particles filled the air as the light spears were destroyed. These light particles gathered up and formed 3 new Samuel. Block this! All 4 called out as the 3 Samuels gathered around Naruto and formed large light spears. They each chucked the large spears in hopes of finishing Naruto off. Gladly, Naruto crossed his fingers and in a poof of smoke 5 clones appeared around Naruto. 3 went and used themselves as shield to block the 3 spears. While 1 went around at high speeds and dispatched each of the Samuel with well-placed Chidoris. The explosions of the light spears lit up the sky as the final clone grabbed Naruto's final tail and started to absorb the light energy from it. Samuel, seeing that his plan failed, ceased his barrage and formed 2 light swords in his hands. He once again charged, but Naruto crossed his fingers and another clone appeared above Samuel's head and performed a bicycle kick that sent Samuel hurtling towards the ground. The clone next to Naruto raised his thumb to signal that his job was done and disappeared in a puff of smoke. Samuel crashed to the ground and caused a large eruption of smoke. Naruto formed a golden Rasengan in his hands and descended down at high speed, rammed his attack into the still recovering Samuel's stomach. He then picked Samuel up and sent him hurtling into the air. He formed 2 Rasen shurikens in both hands, one purple one black, and sent them into the air. He used his 2-pointer finger as if he was a conductor to control the attacks as they flew all over the sky, but didn't connect with Samuel, who still couldn't stop himself. Him tilde him him tilde him him tilde. Naruto was moving his hands to a song only he knew. His movements were off course, sending his attacks all around the sky. Him tilde ha. As his eternal song came to an end, he slammed his hands together, causing the 2 attacks to start speeding toward each, with Samuel, who had me the height of his involuntary flight, in the middle. And let this be our climax, Koka-chan. The 2 attacks connected, forming a large sphere of golden and dark energy to form in the air. Back with the others. Holy crap. Sirzex said in amazement as he looked at the large sphere in the air. What is he? Zenobia wondered. The rest of the Gremory group stared in amazement at what they had seen unfold before them. With Naruto, the broken body of Samuel crashed to the ground, barely walked up to the body. The gold of his clothes had turned back to orange and he had once again closed his right eye in a permanent eye smile. Well, look at that, you're still alive. You're never going to move again and your pain is in pain at this point, but you survived, good for you. Naruto formed a purple Rasengan in his left hand. Let's correct that, shall we? I'd have to ask you don't do that. A voice cut in. Naruto looked up, completely unshocked by the sudden arrival. What do you want? As he said this, Naruto stepped on Samuel's chest. Azazel finished his flight down and slowly approached Naruto with an angry look in his eyes. Naruto. I'm going to have to ask you to remove your foot. I need to punish Samuel the fallen angel way. Naruto stomped down on Samuel again, eliciting a groan, which caused Azazel to cease his approach. And why would I do that? This man threatened the life of my charge. His life has been forfeited for a while now. Despite the smile on his face, it was clear that Naruto was exceedingly pissed. Because you are not allowed to do any such thing, or are you forgetting your father's rules? Oh blah blah blah, so he'll bitch a bit. This bastard is going to die by my hand. Naruto's smile had disappeared again and the atmosphere was once again growing heavy. Slowly a sick grin spread across his face. So what are you going to do to stop me? Azazel couldn't do anything to stop Naruto. Naruto knew that. Azazel knew that as well. Fine, but at least make it quick. The smile on Naruto's changed into a frown as he waved away his Rasengan. He then created a single black ball in his hands. There was nothing outwardly special about the ball. His previous Rasengan looked much more intimidating. To anyone who didn't know what it was, they'd assume it to be his weakest attack. I'll make it as quick as possible. And make sure can never come back. Naruto willed the ball to change into the shape of a shakuho. He then slammed the staff onto Samuel's head, causing it completely fade away. No noise, no screaming, no nothing. His head ceased to exist. There, much better. You can have the rest. Naruto kicked the body to Azazel's feet. Azazel stared down at his old friend and then sighed. I guess this is what you always truly wanted, huh Samuel? Naruto looked at the spot where Samuel died for a second before turning towards the Gremory group. With Vali. Vali has enough of decimating weak enemies, so he just warned them to stay away from them. Certainly, the enemies didn't want to die, seeing Vali's power firsthand, so they didn't attack him anymore. Vali turned his attention to the fight between Naruto and Samuel. His grin becomes wider and wider with each moment of the fight. And when Naruto prepared to unleash Calamity End, he couldn't help but laugh manically. Ha 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 ha. That's right, Naruto-san. Show me your power. If you are not this powerful, then my interest in you would have diminished already. When Rias and Issei was transported by Sirzek's spell using a castling move, they immediately headed to the clubroom to rescue Gasper and Kaneko. Suddenly they felt a huge shockwave that even shook the building. They still need to rescue Gasper and Kaneko after all. He felt Naruto's power up himself. Just how strong the enemy is to make that Teme power up this much. With that, both began to run faster, heading to the clubroom. With 3 faction leaders and others. Suddenly an orange seal appeared in front of them and a figure slowly materialized out of it. Serafal was utterly shocked seeing her presence and demanded, "Why are you here?" The figure that appeared in front of them is a tall, bespectacled woman with a voluptuous figure. She has tan skin with long brown hair tied into a bun with a headset and blue-gray eyes. She wears a dress that was extremely low-cut and had a high slit on it which exposed a large portion of her. Kateria. Serafal called out her name. The figure in front of them is Kateria Leviathan, the descendant of the former Leviathan. However, she went rogue, because she was angry that some fakers decided to inherit the name of their ancestor. Kateria skeptically looked at the three leaders and scoffed. "Look at this. 3 leaders of the respective factions decided to ally themselves. What a disgusting sight. What are you doing here, Kateria?" demanded Sirzex with a serious gaze. "To take over the world, of course. Mao's and God had died, that's why the world need to change as well," replied Kateria with a shrug. However, Sirzex narrowed his eyes when she licked her lips and added, "However, as a bonus, I will also take a cutie that is fighting Samuel with me. He will be my slave and I can do anything with him." Serafal widened her eyes in rage as the air around her started to become colder. In no time, a block of ice surrounds her feet. "I won't let you touch even a patch of hair on my darling, Kateria. If you dare to harm Naru-chan, I will show you no mercy," declared Serafal. Completely dropped her childish facade and glared at Kateria with chilling eyes. However, Kateria just stared back at her with as much hatred and replied, "I see you are pretty fond of him, eh? That will be even better. I will take him away from you, like you have taken my rightful place as the new Leviathan." Then she leered at Serafal and taunt, "I thought about killing you, however I changed my mind about that. I would rather see your devastated expression, when I am going to take advantage of your beloved." That comment just makes Serafal even more furious. And the chilling wind states to blow harsher around her body. However, when a hand was put on her shoulder, she calmed down a bit and turned to look at the owner of said hand. It belonged to Azazel and he is grinning amusedly. "It's not that every day I could fight against the descendant of original Leviathan, the harbinger of destruction. So I would prefer if you let me entertain her." Sirzex, Michael? Both leaders just shook their head to say that they didn't mind at all. Even though Serafal can be angered very easily when the subject concerned Naruto's safety, however she could also cool down very fast and back to her childish personality. "Alright, Azazel-san, give her a good beating so that she would remember to never tries anything with my darling." Serafal punched the air and squinted her eyes. Sirzex decided to give Kateria the last warning. "It will be a waste to kill some devil from pure blood after all. I let you to rethink one more time, Kateria. There is no need for us to fight each other." Kateria just scoffed and replied back, "I won't change my decision. Even if you are a great Mao right now, you are still not the original Mao. You didn't have his blood in your veins. You are nothing but an imposter, Sirzex." "I see," muttered Sirzex in disappointment at her reply. "It's a shame then." With that said, both Azazel and Kateria began to float up. Both are releasing incredible amount of energy, enough to create an energy cloak around them. Azazel unleashed his wings as well. When the two aura clashed, the impact is enough to obliterate the magicians floating around them. "You are a pretty worthy opponent, Kateria Leviathan. Maybe I should change my outfit, eh?" stated Azazel with a grin and put his knuckle under his chin. "TCH, you are just a filthy fallen angel leader. You won't stand a chance against me," declared Kateria arrogantly and casted 4 magic circles and shoot orange beams from them at Azazel. Azazel skillfully dodged, and when one of the attacks was about to hit him, he casted his own circle to cancel the attack. So far Azazel didn't go to offense and just avoiding and deflecting Kateria's attack. With Rias and Issei, the moment Azazel and Kateria's aura clashed, Rias immediately felt it. Someone else is fighting. Azazel? And, looking up outside, Rias' eyes widened in shock. Why is she here? Issei followed her gaze and asked. Who is fighting Azazel, bucko? That's Kateria Leviathan, the descendant of the original Leviathan. As you know, after the war 4 great Maos died and we chose new Maos. Rias began her explanation, turning to Issei. Issei nodded his head and added. Yes, they're your brother and Kaichu's older sister. That's right. Due to the heavy loss from the previous war, all 3 factions decided to sign a treaty. Because if the war continues, then we would all have died out. However, despite that, there are still existed those who wanted the continuation of the war. Rias decided to continue with her way. However, we must do what we came here for. Let's go, Issei. Hi, Bucko. Azazel versus Kateria. They have been going on like that for a while. Neither really attack seriously and just try to measure the capacity of each other. However, nothing can go on forever and Kateria decided to make the first step. Enough of those half-ass attacks. Are you ready to play seriously, Azazel? Wondered Kateria, then casted a spell from her circle. But this time the transparent snakes began to envelope her body and increased her power drastically. Kateria laughed in satisfaction as she could feel the power up in her body. Snakes? Azazel narrowed his eyes in suspicion. Suddenly Kateria launched a very powerful attack that released dozens of those transparent snakes. However, Azazel managed to dodge in time and appeared behind her. For a descendant of the original Mao, that is still too powerful. Who is the one that gave you that power, eh? Demanded Azazel. With Ophis. None of them noticed that Ophis is watching everything that is happening right now. However, she seems to focus on Naruto's battle. The others didn't interest her. Azazel versus Kateria. Kateria didn't reply back, instead channel her magic to her palm and attempt to strike at Azazel. However, Azazel counters it with a palm of his own. You don't need to know that about because, stated Kateria maliciously, which unnerved Azazel. The dead don't need to know anything. With that said, Kateria released a huge amount of energy and explode. With Ophis. Ophis actually applauded seeing Naruto was the victor of the fight. Not bad, your eyes sure have some interesting powers. However, I could see that you have used only fraction of your power. Now I am curious to see you in full strength. Maybe you could help me with goal. If you are powerful enough. Seeing that nothing interesting will happen anymore, Ophis opened the portal and was about to left. She turned back one last at Naruto's location and said, "We will meet face to face one day. I hope you will become stronger when that day will come. Hell, if you prove that you're powerful enough to help me defeat Bucka Red, I may let you spend eternity with me." And just that, Ophis stepped in the portal and disappeared within it. With Issei and Rias, they finally reached the clubroom and saw that Kaneko and Gasper was chained to a magic circle. There were at least 10 magicians in the room. Seeing Bucko and Issei appeared to save them make Kaneko and Gasper felt ashamed of themselves due to being captured so easily like that. "Bucko, I am sorry. I failed you," whispered Kaneko with a voice full of grief. She was hanged upside down, unlike Gasper, who was hanging regularly. "Kaneko-chan, Gasper, hang in there, we will save you guys right away," exclaimed Issei. "You are sure careless, Rias Gremory, to let such a monster so much freedom. It need to be put in a prison and only allowed to go out when need," stated one of the magicians. Rias narrowed her eyes and retort, "Unfortunately, I am one of those that care about my servants. I won't tolerate when my servants was called monster or anything like that. So if you guys wanted to live for a little longer, I suggest you shut your mouth." As she said that, her body began to cover with power of destruction, which unnerved the enemies greatly. But that moment, Gasper whispered desperately, "Bucko, please just kill me." Both Issei and Rias widened at his request. "Oi, what are you talking about? Don't joke like that," exclaimed Issei. Gasper looked at them both tearfully and retort, But I am so useless to you guys and always caused you all trouble. I don't want to be a burden all the time. So if I will get in situation like this all the time, then I would better be dead than live and being a burden all the time." Rias heard his reply and looked at Gasper with soft eyes and said, "Remember when I accepted you to my family, Gasper? I said that I will always accept you and will help you to overcome all your weakness. I may scold you and may sometimes be unreasonable to you. However, I would never abandon anyone from my family. That's why you could cause as much trouble as you want to me. I don't mind a bit. However, stay with me." After such heartfelt declaration, Gasper's tears started to fall down and he whispered, "Arigato, Bucko." Issei grinned widely and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "As expect of our Bucko." One magician mockingly clapped and stated, "Bravo for such a touching declaration. However, do you really think we will allow you two to take them away and ruin our plans?" "Gasper, we are all your friends. Me, Bucko, Kaneko-chan, Akeno-san, Kiba, Asia, Xenovia, and you are not alone and never will be. And if you didn't." Issei then activated his boosted gear and released Ascalon from it. "Blade." Boosted gear shouted out, Seeing Issei brought out Ascalon, Rias asked curiously. What are you planning, Issei? Make a first step, then nothing would start. With those words Issei cut himself and thrust Ascalon forward and flick his blood at Gasper's face. Show them all what you can do, Gasper. You are Gremory after all. Gasper hesitantly licked the blood that was flicked at his face and gained control of his power back. Now that he regained the control of his power, Gasper freezes the time and freed Kaneko. What the heck did he do? Disappeared? No, he just freezes our time. How is that possible though? His sacred gear was under our control. Gasper split himself to dozens of bats and began to suck out their powers and blood. Kya, he is sucking out our blood, exclaimed one of the magicians. Not only blood but magical energy too, shouted the other. Issei could only watch in awe at Gasper's power. Seeing Issei's expression, Rias smirked and said, "This is one of his hidden abilities." One of? Just how many does he actually have? Don't tell me he is just like Ice Cube of Sensei of mine? Wondered Issei in wonder. He managed to control his power thanks to you, Issei. But how did you figure that out? Wondered Rias curiously. Issei just narrowed his eyes in thought. It's all thanks to that guy, Issei is implying to Azazel. He was the one that told him that when his first training started. One of the magicians was about to escape, however Kaneko appeared in front of him and sent her flying back with a kick. The bat's eyes glowing crimson and you could hear Gasper's voice echoing through the room. No matter what you do, it's no use. Now that I could properly control my power, I could predicted all your movements. Gasper decided to freeze their time, then shouted out to Issei. Issei-senpai, finish them. Issei pumped his fist up and flames of determination blazing brightly in his eyes. Issei crossed his hands and eyes in concentration, then snapped them open and shot long red beams at the frozen figures of magicians. And surely the seal of Gremory appeared on their clothes. Issei closed his eyes again with a satisfying smirk and snapped his fingers and called out the name of his technique. Dress break Neo. And then instantly the clothes on the figures were ripped apart. Issei began to drool and grinned perversely seeing the nude female figures. I can't believe it. Now Issei-senpai could use that shameless technique at long distance, muttered Kaneko in disbelief. What is worse, that's his technique. Rias shook her head in amusement. You did it, Issei-senpai. Gasper congratulated Issei, but still transformed to his normal state just yet. Ha ha ha, see that? My newly improved technique, dress break Neo. Now I could use that at long distance. And then one day I will destroy all females' clothes. When that day comes, all girls must walk around nude. Muhaha, declared Issei proudly. Issei-senpai, you will always remain the worst, said Kaneko expressionlessly as usual. Rias just shook her head and said, now that we rescued both Kaneko and Gasper, we need to return to the others. I am worrying for my brother. With the appearance of Kateria, who knows there may be someone else from old faction will appear. Kaneko, Issei and one bat nodded their heads seriously. With Vali. When Naruto's battle with Samuel has ended, Vali began to feel himself boring. However, things started to turn more interesting when Kateria Leviathan appeared. But judging from the battle, he could tell that Kateria was no match for Azazel and soon will be defeated. It's time to show my true face to them, eh? Otherwise things will be very boring. It will be a perfect opportunity to see how much you've improved, Hyodo Issei. However, if he didn't meet my expectations, you will be opponent then, Naruto-san, said Vali to himself and put his gaze down at the resting figure of Naruto. While Sirzex and Michael are holding their barrier to protect the frozen ones. Grafia is analyzing the barrier in order to break it. Xenovia and Kiba earned the task to eliminate the rest of the enemies. However, due to the teleportation circle, there were no end of the enemies. Seraphal is staying close to her sister's frozen body and holding the defensive barrier as well. Dragon shot. A familiar voice was heard after that. A red energy ball hit one of the magicians. The voice belongs to Issei, which means they have successfully rescued Kaneko and Gasper. Issei-kun, exclaimed Yuto, seeing who the one that assist him was. I see you guys have successfully rescued both of them. Yeah, nodded Issei and turned back to Yuto, gazing at the enemies around them. So what to do now? Beat them until Grafia-san didn't find a way to break the barrier? Well, I didn't see the other way out of here, shrugged Yuto, gripping his sword of betrayer tighter. And then they began to fight the enemy around them. Rias went to her brother and decided to leave Gasper for his own safety. Ni-sama, I will leave Gasper with you. Sirzex nodded his head and said. Naruto-kun already finished his fight. Rias nodded her head and joined the battle. Kaneko and Zenovia are fighting as well. Gasper, seeing his friends fighting to protect him, felt himself so useless at the moment. Why he must always be a burden to everyone? The enemy's attacks are raining down like no tomorrow. Because of limited quantity, Rias and her peerage are struggling against the enemy. Azazel vs. Kateria. The battle between two higher beings still as heat as possible. Azazel has decided to change from defensive to offensive. He launched a couple of holy needles at Kateria, which caused the latter to deflect it with a magic circle. Seeing this fight is getting nowhere, Azazel decided to step up. You are tough enough to fight on par with me. Yes, I will take this fight to the next stage, stated Azazel with calm grin, and put his right hand to the chest area and brought out a small golden spear with a violet sphere at the end at the handle. Kateria narrowed her eyes in alarm when he proclaimed that. What is that? My hobby is something that even more interesting than a war, well, to me at least. This is the Downfall Dragon Spear. The artificial sacred gear that I personally created, explained Azazel with a grin. His grin became even wider when he said next words. Balance. Break. His body began to glow golden and it was bright enough to cover his body in the light. Back to Rias. Rias used an enormous defensive magic circle to deflect the enemy's attacks, but her strength was not enough to hold it for long. As a result, she was blasted back to the ground. However, that didn't happen. Rias closed her eyes, expected to be crashed to the ground, but didn't expect to be in the arms of someone. When she opened her eyes, they shone with shock. The one that caught her was none other than Naruto, and he looked down at her with a bored look. Tisk, you should not be this weak, Gremory. Well, like I would want you to save me, stated Rias with an angry huff. Naruto looked slight incredulously at her. Tisk, you have problems, girl. Rias shook her head in deny and retort. Of course, you threatened my pawn and I am no girl. Naruto blinked his eyes and replied. It was not a threat, just a warning. He put her gently down to the ground, then turned to the enemy. She won't even need to assist him. Rias decided to return to her brother's place. I see that Naruto-kun has arrived to help us, stated Sirzex with a smirk. Hi, however, I didn't think that he will head straight to a fight like that. He just fought one of fallen archangels after all, wondered Rias with a shake of her head. I don't want to be a burden anymore. Issei senpai. Rias Bucko, I want to meet Bucku's expectations and help my friends, stated Gasper with teary eyes. You could see his determination really clearly through those eyes. I will also fight, because I am a man. With that, shouted Gasper, activated his sacred gear. Rias, seeing that, shouted, Gasper, no. Then she turned to her brother that was still calmly holding a barrier. Why didn't you stop him, Ni-sama? Suddenly, the barrier surround them was dispersed, and along with that is the teleportation all circle. That means all the frozen ones were free as well. Gasper, you are awesome, exclaimed Issei. Cut down the enemy with Ascalon. Naruto-kun, are you alright? Irina arrived to assist Naruto and is standing before him protectively. I am, replied Naruto and punched the other magician and sent her flying. This is getting boring. Irina looked questionably at her crush. He just winked at her and launched himself at the enemies with a dark sword formed around his hand. Playing Naruto Ost reverse situation. Naruto punched his enemy and sent her flying. Then kicked the other and she was sent flying as well. Some decided to use fire beams at him. Naruto, still propelling like a raging beast, dodging all the beams on the fly and send them flying with his slashes and kicks again. Some decided to fire, created a spider web made of beams in hope and stop Naruto. However, nothing could stop him. Like a raging beast, he is charging at them with eyes widened in a crazy way. In those eyes were pair of blazing Sharingan which always looked back and forth to predict and counter enemies' movements. The enemies could only tremble in fear seeing their force being killed by a single person so easily, like a walk in the park. However, it is already too late to regret their past decisions. In the end, Naruto turned his back towards his enemies, with hair shadowed his eyes. But if you looked behind, then you could see the enemies are falling down to earth like rain dropped from the sky. The enemies fell down on each other and form a hill made of them. End of Ost. When that happened, others stopped their actions and looked flabbergasted at Naruto. seeing how he alone fighting all the enemies and killing them so easily. He is like a raging beast that won't stop until all his enemies will be defeated. Shug, whispered Irina, seeing her crush fighting hand-to-hand combat for the first time. What the heck is that Teme? Nobody could fight so many enemies with one sword like that, muttered Issei in disbelief. Naruto-san, muttered Yuto in awe and fear. He didn't know that Naruto also skilled in swordmanship. He thought that Naruto often relies on his dragon powers and wasn't very skilled in fighting. However, Naruto proved him wrong this moment. Akeno, which was freed from time freeze, shot lightning from her palm at her enemy and obliterated her. Sensing Naruto's energy at the distance, she looked at that direction and saw a very impressive sight. Naruto-kun sure is ruthless. Azazel vs. Kateria. When the light died down, Azazel was seen wore by a golden dragon armor similar to Issei and Vali's. However, the orbs were violet and the armor is golden in color. His wings is still being released after the transformation. Adding to that, he created a twin-edged spear in his right hand. And certainly Issei's boosted gear immediately reacted to the presence of another dragon. What is that? Wondered Issei as he turned his head towards Azazel's direction. Fallen heavenly dragon armor. Downfall dragon another armor. Azazel uttered the name of his dragon armor and his wings disappeared. Dragon armor. And that's balance break, muttered Issei looking up at Azazel. Naruto also looked up to Azazel and thought, I see, so that's what Azazel-san didn't use in our fight. The armor that contained one of Dragon King's. Indeed, if he used that, then I would have to take our fight to the next level. Back to Azazel. Azazel made a, come on, motion and taunted Kateria. Well, what are you waiting for? Come and get me. Kateria narrowed her eyes at Azazel, then charged at him while shouted. Don't underestimate me, filthy fallen angel. However, another armor powers up Azazel to such a level that Kateria could no longer keep up with him. As a result, she didn't even see Azazel move and pierced her with his twin-edged spear. Azazel's attack was fast enough to tore her clothes and broke her glasses. Her voluptuous body was revealed to the world. Azazel though just laughed amused at his power. However, Kateria still not fully given up yet. Her hands became more elastically and she shot her hands at Azazel. This new world won't need someone like you, Azazel. Even if I can't defeat you, then I may as well die with you. Cake Tea shouted and snaked her hands around Azazel's left hand. She planned to take Azazel with her by self-exploding. A suicide plan? Muttered Azazel calmly. However, that won't work. The deal is not even equal. When Azazel said that, he used his twin-edged spear and cut off his left arm. That action separates his left hand, which shocked Kateria greatly. Azazel threw his twin-edged spear at Kateria's forehead and obliterated her. Kateria could only screamed out in pain one last time before she was erased by Azazel's unholy energy. Feel free to feast on my left arm though, stated Azazel calmly, even if he just lost his left arm. He released his balance break, no more like the armor disperse itself, then casted a healing magic to stop the flow of his blood where his left arm was. Azazel caught the violet orb and looked at it fondly. It seems we still have a long way to go with you, Dragon King Fafnir. Azazel kissed the orb and turned back to the others. He just cut his arm off easily like that? That's just crazy, stated Issei and shook his head. By now not many enemies had left. Rias ordered for everyone to destroy the rest. Rias peeraged together with Sona and Tsubaki plus Irina taking care of the rest of the enemies. Naruto though didn't fight anymore and just looked up at Azazel, but he is not exactly looking at him. More like he expected something or someone will come. I wonder why he looks at me like that, wondered Azazel and put his remaining hand to his chin. However, he didn't expect for a strike out of nowhere to knock him down to the ground hard. What was that? Wonder Issei turned his eyes to Azazel's crashed direction. Naruto thought and smirked at the floating figure that just knocked Azazel to the ground. So you finally decided to reveal your true face, eh, Vali? The one responsible for Azazel the moment before was none other than Vali. He looked down at Naruto and replied, I see you were not so surprised by this outcome, Naruto-san. Well, I can't help it, to be a good guy is boring. I hate when it is boring. And certainly being a villain is far more entertaining. Azazel groggily climbed out of the hole caused by his crash, then looked lazily at Vali and said, It seems you decided to turn against us, Vali? However, answer this question for me. When my vice commander Shemazai searched for those that will be a threat to 3 main factions, he mentioned a group called Chaos Brigade. Could you tell something more about that? I am sure you know quite a lot, being one of them, after all. Chaos Brigade. Searzex repeated the name of the most dangerous organization in the world. The gathering of the most dangerous individuals, added Serafal. But to achieve that, one would need tremendous power. Who could it be, powerful enough to gather such a group? Wondered Graphia. Though the one that answered her question was not Vali or Azazel. It was Naruto, who crossed his hands and exclaimed logically. The most powerful beings that could possibly gather such a group could only be 3 beings, stated Naruto calmly and crossing his arms to start the counter. 1 is Great Red. However, nobody has ever saw him personally and he didn't has any reason to gather such a group. That means we can exclude him. 2 is Trihexa. But that is not possible either. He is being sealed away since who knows how long. The possibility of him destroyed the seal and escape is unlikely. Because it was said that the seal that hold was strong enough that even with 4 Satans and all Seraphs working together won't be able to break it. That means the third option. The Dragon God of Infinity, Ophis. At Naruto's deduction, everybody widened their eyes in shock, though Asia and Issei didn't have a clue who is that. Oh, Ophis, you say? Muttered Rias in shock and disbelief. Issei wondered why that name put so much people in shock. Seeing that, Rias decided to explain to him who is Ophis. The infinite and immortal dragon. The strongest dragon that was said even God feared it when he was alive. Am I right? Naruto wanted to make sure that his deduction was correct, so he looked up at Vali for confirmation. You could deduce even that? You are truly impressive, Naruto-san. That's why I and Ophis took a great interest in you, replied Vali, looking down at Naruto from his position. It's true that I joined force with Ophis. However, neither of us is interested in the world nor trying to dominate it. Those just craved for power will eventually come to us. That's all. Hearing that Ophis took a great interest in Naruto alerted lots of people there. Certainly, Searzex, Serafal and Michael knew that with Naruto's power level it will be inevitable for him to not draw attention from powerful beings. However, hearing that Ophis personally took an interest in someone is very shocking. After all, she was never interested in anything except Great Red. I see. And how fortunately that your plan matches Kateria's. To return your rightful place, as the descendant of original Satan. Right? Stated Azazel and looked at Vali with a knowing gaze. What do you mean by taking a rightful place as the descendant of original Satan? Wondered Rias suspiciously. My full name is Vali Lucifer. Vali decided to reveal his true identity. What? Whispered Searzex in shock. Lucifer, you say? Exclaimed Issei in surprise. That can't be, muttered Rias and shook her head. Naruto just smiled, show his reaction to this revelation. The blood of deceased Satan is flowing through my veins. I am his direct descendant, the mixed offspring of pure demon and human woman. Revealed Vali with a satisfying smirk, but you couldn't see it, as he is in balance breaker state. That is unbelievable, exclaimed Rias in shock. To think there is a being that was born from a pure demon and a human. Muttered Searzex, still quite shocked at the revelation. Vali looked down back at Naruto and stated, it must be fate that I was also turned out to be the host for Vanishing Dragon. One word could describe clearly my existence. Miracle. After that he released 8 of his devil wings, which shocked those at the ground greatly. Those wings, stuttered Rias with widened eyes in shock. My lord, whispered Michael in shock as well. This man is and will probably the most powerful white dragon emperor in the past, present and future, stated Azazel. Being a direct descendant of original Satan and also has human blood. I see why you are so confident in your strength now, Vali, stated Naruto looking at Vali with analyzing gaze. However, Naruto scoffed ATND retort. But you are not the only descendant of Lucifer. After that he released 10 of his devil wings, which shocked those around and including Vali himself. Naruto smirked back and crossed his hands. Didn't I tell you I will make sure I have no equal in strength the next time you decide to fight? Make sure you know who is your superior. Vali regained his composure and decided to ask the main question running in his mind. So we are the same, but I must know who were your parents. There is no other Lucifer I know. Azazel narrowed his eyes at Naruto with the rest ready to fight him if he proves to be hostile. Naruto just smiled and closed his eyes, My father is Minato Lucifer, is the second son of the original Lucifer. In other words, we are cousins or even too close to brothers. Is it not funny how we are so alike? But enough of me, your fight is with your so-called rival. Naruto mocked Vali. Exclaimed Issei and pointed at himself. Interesting. But if he disappoint me, then you will take his place, Naruto-san. Vali set a condition for Naruto. No problem. But we will see his strength in this fight, proclaimed Naruto and glanced at Issei from the corner of his eyes. Issei looked nervously around and thought, what the heck that Teme thinking, putting me in a fight against Vali? Sure, I feel myself stronger than before, but it doesn't mean that I could defeat the descendant of original Lucifer. Suddenly he felt someone put a palm at his shoulder. He looked up and saw that it was his Azazel. He looked at him with a light grin and stated, don't worry, believe in your strength and remember our training. But how could I put up against Vali? My balance break is only for 10 minutes. How the heck I could win in 10 minutes against such an opponent, complained Issei. Remember the first lesson I gave you. With a proper motivation you could defeat even me, just keep that in mind. And think about what is important to you, lectured Azazel one last time before walking away. What is important to me, huh? Muttered Issei and dazed out for a bit. Are you done your lecturing, Azazel? Either way I will prove wrong, stated Vali. Issei looked more confident after Azazel's words and slowly walked up to Vali. Listen here, Vali. Azazel is my sensei. Even if he is a weirdo, I will still want to prove him that his faith in me is not a mistake. He is the only one that believes in my strength, even I myself doubt it. That's why I won't disappoint him. After the proclamation, Issei shouted out and his body began to glow crimson. Welsh Dragon Overbooster, balance break, boosted gear, shouted out and covered Issei in dragon armor. With spectators, that's balance break, muttered Rias in shock, then turned to Azazel and saw his satisfying grin. But when did he achieve that? Well, the transformation is not complete though. And he could only hold that form for 10 minutes, stated Azazel. His eyes never left two heavenly dragons that were about to fight. Only 10 minutes? Will Issei-san be alright? Azazel-san? Asked Asia full of concern. Azazel looked back at Asia and assured her, he will be fine. I didn't train him to lose a fight. After that everybody's eyes turned back to two heavenly dragons that are about to clash. Play Naruto Shippuden Ostgekia. Issei vs Vali. Vali saw Issei unleashed his balance break and decided to comment. Ho, balance break, eh? It seems Azazel didn't really bluff after all. Show what you got, Hyodo Issei. Here I come, bastard, shouted Issei and launched himself at Vali with impressive speed and punched him. However, Vali caught his fist easily and countered. Not a bad punch. However, divine dividing, shouted out and sucked half of Issei power out. You forget about my sacred gear ability, Hyodo Issei, finished Vali and kicked Issei crash to the ground. Issei groggily climbed out of that crater and cursed. Kuso, I forgot about that. Aibo, it will be a hard fight. Just by touching you, he could suck out our power. Therefore don't let him touch you, advised Diedrich. Issei widened his eyes and muttered. Right, I have an advantage as well. Nearly forget about that. Vali looked down at Issei from above and stated arrogantly. Show me your power, Hyodo Issei. This is not all you can do, right? Issei didn't answer him but stood up silently and rushed at Vali and muttered. Ascalon, blade, boosted gear, said and unleashed the holy blade. Issei's attack was unexpected, as a result Vali's left side was slashed. Vali widened his eyes and quick put a distance between them. He looked at boosted gear and saw a blade come out from it. Be careful from now, Vali. That is Dragon Slayer. That weapon is very harmful for his dragons. Just one touch will damage you badly. Furthermore, I could feel God's blessing in it, warned Albion to his partner. When Vali heard that Ascalon was blessed by God, automatically he looked down at Naruto, who was concentrated in their fight. Hey, not bad, he still have such an ace up his sleeve, eh? Muttered Vali with an exciting grin. Then he launched himself at Issei and the two of them began to brawl in the sky. Both emanate huge amount of draconic aura, the only one that wasn't affected by them was Naruto. With spectators, Rias and her peerage gape in wonder and shock seeing Issei hold his own against Vali. Naruto glanced at them for a moment and turned his gaze back to the fight. Shug. Issei-kun is fighting on par with Hakuryu-ko, exclaimed Yuto. Rias turned her gaze at Azazel and asked, "How did you manage to make him so much stronger, Azazel?" Azazel glanced back at her and replied, "With a proper motivation, Hyodo-san could become very strong, because he had potential and drive." But Naruto suddenly smirked and commented, "But even so it is hard for him to keep up with Vali, who is a descendant of original Satan." When Naruto said, everybody could see Vali speed up and knocked Issei down to the ground with his knee. Then used divine dividing and divided and absorbed Issei's power once more. Issei versus Vali. "Is that all?" asked Vali arrogantly floating above with cross hands. Issei groggily stood up and glared at Vali. "Damn, that bastard is fast enough to avoid Ascalon. And he even managed to suck out my power again. At this rate I will sure lose to him. Calm down and think thoroughly. Everybody has weakness," Naruto shouted out standing not far behind him. Issei nodded his head at his teacher's words and began to think. Vali must also has weakness, but what is it? That moment he noticed a strange red dust coming from divine dividing. He released the energy that he couldn't absorb through his wings. By doing that he will always be in max power. Explained Diedrich how divine dividing works when the user couldn't absorb all the energy. I see. No matter how powerful he thinks he is, even he has a limit. That is his weakness. Issei finally understood what Vali's weakness is and smirked confidently. With spectators, Naruto also smirked seeing Issei's smirk. So you also realized his weakness, eh? It's about time. What weakness are you talking about, Naruto? Wondered Rias curiously. Vali weakness is that his body couldn't contain all the energy absorbed by divine diving, because of that he need to release them through his sacred gear. By doing that, his power level will always stay at maximum level. However, Arrow Dashi's boosted gear has the ability to multiply the power every 10 seconds. What do you think will happen when the kid transferred all those energy to divine dividing, eh? Explained Naruto with a knowing smirk. Rias and the others widened their eyes and Yuto answered for everyone. Divine dividing will be overload and the user will lose control over it. That's right, nodded Naruto and turned his eyes back to the fight. Issei versus Vali. Issei once again charged at Vali, but without Ascalon this time. Vali narrowed his eyes, wondered why he decided to hide away his ace. He swiftly dodges and shot a white energy ball at Issei. Issei countered it with dragon shot and the explosion was occurred. A column of smoke was released from the explosion. Vali is waiting alert for Issei's counter-attack. As expected, a red energy head straight at him from the column of smoke. Vali created his magic circle to cancel it, however that was just a distraction maneuver of Issei. The moment Vali casted his magic circle, Issei rushed at him with maximum speed and thrust Ascalon into Vali. Do it now, Diedrich, commanded Issei. Transfer. Boosted gear shouted out and began to transfer Issei's energy into Vali. Vali widened his eyes and finally understood what Issei attempted to do but was too late to stop him. Having Ascalon buried in his body, Vali slowly lost control over his sacred gear. To finish him, Issei grabbed both his wings and began to transfer the power into them. I will overload your wings so much that you won't be able to release the remains of energy anymore. You've underestimated me and now will pay dearly for that, exclaimed Issei victoriously. Then with a battle cry he punched Vali to the chest with the left hand that contains holy energy from Ascalon. Vali grunted and fell down to the ground, but managed to take a kneeling position. You deserve to be my rival Hyodo Issei, exclaimed Vali and transformed back to his balance break form. What? Even after the punch of holy energy, he could still have that much power and even transform back so easily, muttered Issei in wonder. Suddenly the gem in boosted gear began to blip and Issei knows what that means. Kuso. 10 minutes has nearly passed, huh? Now how should I fight him back? Issei then looked down to the ground and saw a blue orb from Vali's dragon armor lying there. He slowly picked it up and stated, Nay Diedrich, sacred gears evolving according to the user's will, right? Interesting, but are you prepared to die for it, Aibo? Diedrich asked his partner. Of course not. However, my sensei taught me the fools have an incredible power that could even surpass genius. I am just fool that can't even believe in my own power. However, if Azazel believed that I could defeat him, then I will gladly prove that to everyone here, exclaimed Issei with fire of determination burn in his eyes. Ha ha ha, Then as your eternal partner I will make sure we survive this, Ibo. Diedrich laughed at Issei's reckless decision. What are you planning to do now, Hyodo Issei? Wondered Vali looking at the blue gem in Issei's hand. With spectators, Naruto knew what Issei attempted to do and chuckled. You are really a reckless fool, however it will be interesting to see you overcome this trail and become even more powerful. Rias and the others just looked at Naruto questionably and wondered what he meant. Issei vs Vali. Vanishing Dragon. Vali, I am gonna make your power mine, shouted Issei and crushed the blue gem in his left hand. When the gem was destroyed it began to emanate a blue energy and boosted gear as absorbing it in Issei's right hand. Gah! Issei screamed out in agony as he felt two powers within him fight for dominance. It hurt like a bitch. But still nothing compared to my hellish training. But even so it still hurt so much. Grah! The gem in his right in blipping from red to blue. You are planning to absorb my power? Foolish, you will only die in vain, stated Vali. Kiba managed to create a demonic holy sword which was thought to be impossible. Then I will absorb your power within my sacred gear, retort Issei still squinting his eyes in agony. What a foolish thing to do. We are like the opposite sides of a coin. It's impossible for our power to coexist within one host. Simply suicide, stated Albion. Albion, as my host sensei has said, fools have incredible power that could make it through anything. You shouldn't underestimate fools, retort Diedrich. So what if I am a fool? If could become stronger with my foolish power to protect my precious people to me, then I don't mind being called a fool, exclaimed Issei with eyes still blazing in determination. Vanishing Dragon power is taken, stated boosted gear and Issei's right gauntlet turned white with blue gem. Everybody's eyes widened in shock. They still couldn't believe their eyes that Issei actually pulled that through. That's impossible, muttered Vali in disbelief. With spectators, Naruto himself had his eyes widened then laughed slightly, ha ha ha. Rias just shook her head hearing Naruto's laugh but also comment. That is indeed incredible. I never heard that you could absorb the power of other sacred gear into your own. Issei-san, you are amazing, exclaimed Asia with eyes full of admiration. Issei vs Vali. This is what I call dividing gear, stated Issei and stood to oppose. How the heck is that possible? I can't believe it. Vali still couldn't believe what he is seeing. Even though we pulled through, your life down was greatly reduced even for devils that have very long lifespan, informed Diedrich to his partner. I don't intend to live long. Just enough for me to create my own harem, exclaimed Issei loudly. Iz looked at Vali and stated, now that your power is within me we can continue, Vali. In that case, I won't gonna hold back either, said Vali and flew up high to the sky. His wings began to release enormous energy and shine brightly. Half dimension. Divine dividing, exclaimed. Vali squeezed into a knuckle and the space around started to tighten. What the heck is he doing? Wondered Issei. He is distorting this dimension. It seems he decided to fight Cirrus now, exclaimed Michael. We are in danger peril. That's insane, exclaimed Rias. Oi, Azazel shouted. What the heck do you want now? Issei looked back at Azazel in annoyance. I want to warn you about that technique. From what I see this technique will divide everything in half, stated Azazel then glanced back at the girls behind him and continue. That means every girls here will be divided in half. Are you fine with that, eh? Issei's eyes widened in shock at the revelation and thought in despair. That means that Bucko, Akeno-san, Asia and Zenovia's wonderful boobs will be shrinking in half. However, Azazel didn't finish. And if you let that technique to continue spread like that, then all the women boobs will be shrunk in half. Oi, what nonsense are you saying? Complained Rias with a tick mark on her forehead. Every woman's boobs will be shrink in half because of that bastard? Issei glared daggers at Vali and his power began to slowly raise up from the rage that is surfacing. Don't fuck with me, Vali, screamed Issei in pure rage. To shrink Buku's opai in half is unforgivable. But to shrink every woman's opai is a sin. Like hell I will let that happen. Boost, 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 boost. Boosted gear screamed out in Issei's visor's glowing jade in color. What? Vali didn't understand what Securite is taking about. End Ost. With spectators. Issei vs Vali. Vali looked how much Issei has boosted his power and exclaimed. You are just full of surprise today, Hyodo Issei. This becomes really interesting. Just you try to shrink Bucko and Akano-san's boobs, bastard. I am gonna smash you to the ground that you won't be able to reincarnate anymore. Issei screamed furiously. With that he charged at Vali with blurred speed and struck him with dividing gear. This strike is for Buku's Opai. Divide. Dividing gear exclaimed and divided Vali's power in half. And this is for Akano-san's Opai. Issei shouted and slammed his head to Vali's and crushed the dragon helmets of them both. Vali could only take in Issei's attack and grunt on pain. This is for Asia's still growing Opai. Vali received a punch to his face, then one more. This is for Xenovia's Opai. Putting all his rage and strength in the last punch, Issei shouted. And finally this is for Kaneko-chan's lowly Opai that of shrink in half then will completely disappear. The final punch was powerful enough to send Vali crushed to the ground. However, Vali could still stood up thought shakily. He turned to look at Issei, who also landed to the ground and sighed out from the rage that he released. This is far interesting than I expected. He deserved to see the power of Juggernaut Drive, said Vali to Albion. Do what you see fit, Vali. I, personally, didn't think it will worth the risk, retorted Albion. Naruto, being a descendant have a hearing superior even devils, heard clearly what Vali just said. Juggernaut Drive? Let us see where this goes. Vali raised his fist up and began to chant. I, who will soon awaken, will overthrow everything from the law of kings. I am the heavenly dragon, who conveys infinity and contemplates on it. The path of white dragon rule shall. However, he couldn't finish the chant as the barrier was suddenly broke. The one who did it is a spiky black hair's young man that is holding a staff. Baku, why are you here? Demanded Vali, displeased that he was interrupted in the middle of a fight. The battle against Northern Assassin was about to start, so I was asked to get you back, replied Baku and put his staff on his shoulder. I see, so it's finally start, eh? Stated Vali looking at his comrade. Who the heck are you? Appearing out of nowhere all of a sudden, demanded Issei, still kneeling in exhaustion. Oh ho, so this the new black dragon, eh? I see he is certainly powerful enough to gain yours and that woman attention, stated Baku with a grin. He also put his gaze at Issei and stated with a grin. Nice to meet you as well, Sakiryute. But we must go for now. Slammed his staff to the ground and created a portal. They began to sink in it, but Vali decided to say some words. Let's fight more fiercely next time, Hyodo Issei. And expect to fight you as well, Naruto-san. However, Naruto suddenly he felt a presence behind him and glanced back to see a tall and dignified young man with golden hair standing up like a blazing is described as handsome with eyes blood-red eyes. He's wearing a white jacket with fur collar, a black shirt and black pants. Just appeared there via teleportation all circle. Before he could deliver the message, Naruto interject him. Let me guess? It is time. Gilgamesh smirked, which was full of arrogance. Yes, but it seems you were busy. Scanning all the mongrels around him, disgusting devil, the should have bowed in the presence of a king tch. Yeah, I expected that. Let's go then, said Naruto calmly and approached Gilgamesh. The latter nodded his head and teleport them both to the unknown place. Before he looked at the people in front of Azazel, it was being around, but I have things to attend to in Valley. Tell Ophis she is not the only with an army of powerful beings. With that being said, they vanished, leaving no time here a reply. Like heck, I am gonna let you escape. Issei shouted out and was about to chase after Vali and Naruto, but Sirzex held his shoulder and remarked. Let him be. You did a good job for today.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.